All right, everybody. You all hear me okay? Hello, hello. Testing, testing. How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? Yeah. Different spot, huh? Where am I right now is probably what you guys are wondering. I am in Maryland. I'm in my hometown, and I'm streaming from my editor's place. I've been put outside. You guys have probably seen this, probably similar stream setup this time last year. So we're back here. Vacation, Morge? Kind of vacation. I've been working. Yeah, no, we're at the editor's place. Um, Generally, every single video that you all saw, back when I lived in Maryland, was all at my editor's place. So people were like, "How many rooms are in this house or whatever?" It's like, that's not my house. That's my editor's house. It's a good house. Uh, yeah. But now I've been put outside, so that's the way it is. King G, thanks for the two. How do you feel about Kazuki Moria? I think it's kind of random, but I think it makes sense why Oda would do that plot-wise. It's actually next week's video we cover that. That's one of the main things that we cover in next week's video. Let's get the streamlights up to 50 real quick. Let's get the streamlights up to 50. Yeah, people are excited about the Moria reveal. Yeah, I think it's actually pretty important to the plot. It also makes Moria a lot cooler as a character, because it implies that he came to Wano to fight for probably really just to protect Wano, right? It seemed initially like he was just a dumb pirate that thought he could beat Kaido, came over to Wano, lost, and then that was the end of that. But in actuality, he came to try to be the hero, the champion of the country. I think that's really cool. Keenan, what's good, man? Good to see you. Halfway feels like Oda is just siphoning 25 years of built-up aura for Roger and giving it to Roxlaw. I feel like this chapter, though, gave Roger his aura back. I feel like this chapter was pretty great for Roger. I thought that his entire scene in the bar was pretty badass. I thought he came away looking cooler from that whole interaction than Rox even. I don't know if people agree, but that's how I felt. Aether says he already brought up next week's video. That's a record. Hey, I bring it up as soon as it comes up. Name named. Thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 35 months. Also, big heads up, everybody. Pirate King podcast submissions are open for the month. For those of you who don't know, Pirate King podcast is for my top tier of patrons. It is a podcast that I do once a month that is usually an hour and a half long. They've all been about an hour and a half long nowadays. So let's say hour to hour and a half long. You submit your questions. You can ask about anything: One Piece, anime, manga, other movies, TV, video games, real life, all that stuff, NBA. You can go ask those questions there, and I answer it in a very extended format in the Pirate King podcast. So everybody gets their questions answered, and I can answer it in much greater detail than I could otherwise in stream. So if you want, join the Pirate King tier. You can get your podcast submissions in. Continuing on, though. Here, let's see. Named said, Mork Odin came back to Wano 25 years ago and died 20 years ago, and Kaido fought Moria 23 years ago. So was this bum-ass mofo Odin for real twerking in a sumo-thong while Moria fought them to save the country? Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I do feel like... How do I say this? I feel like... I get why, storytelling-wise, Oda went the route that he did with Odin. Because Oda likes the idea of, like, a character suffering in silence while actually upholding a heavy burden, right? But at the same time, I feel like with Odin's story... I like the climax of Odin's story and everything like that. I do feel like with Odin's story, Oda could have maybe done a bit more to show how Odin's hands were really tied by the situation. I think that would have been helpful. If he could have really emphasized a bit by, like, why Odin just felt like he had no other option than to not even no other option, why Odin felt like this had to be the route that he goes. I think that would have helped a lot more. Because I like the idea, like, of Odin basically just shouldering this heavy burden on his own, symbolized by the boiling of the pot and everything like that. I like the idea. I think Odin's story is a great concept. I do think that it would have helped just hammer in the why a little bit stronger if we'd gotten to even just see something, like see what Odin saw or something, or like understand what Odin's seeing or whatever. That would help more, because just being told offhand that, oh, there were some hostages or something like that, I think that doesn't really bring in the full weight or whatever. That's my thought. Duck20, thanks for the 10. Something major happened in God Valley. I don't think Roger and Garp killed Rox. Seems like Roger changed as a person after God Valley. Also, Holy Knights don't deploy anymore to islands after this event, probably. Yeah, I think the God Valley... So first of all, let's all get excited, because I think this chapter, to me, I feel like at this point, we can do a little poll, but I feel like at this point, it is practically confirmed that we're going to get the God Valley flashback here. I think it's practically confirmed. If Oda doesn't do it, that'd be so damn disappointing. But the one reason I felt like we might not be getting the God Valley flashback over the course of this Rox flashback was just because I was like, man, is the whole flashback for the first several chapters felt very Rox-centric. So I was like, Roger is kind of the protagonist of the God Valley incident, so would Oda really do, give us the God Valley flashback without giving us time with the Roger pirates? But now, as the flashback has progressed, we've realized that it's really hitting on three main areas. Elbaf, so Harold and Loki's story, Rox and the Rox pirate story, and the Roger pirate story. So this chapter, it felt like Roger is emerging more and more as like a major focus of the flashback as well. And that's what I was kind of looking for, because now Oda's just building so much narrative momentum to a climax, right? He's just building and building narrative momentum. It would feel really, really, really blue-bally if he didn't have it all culminate in the God Valley incident. Maybe it culminates in like a Lodestar incident or something like that, but it just feels like it needs to culminate in the God Valley incident. Like that's just what this whole storyline is leading to. Like Garling is literally talking about God Valley here. I don't know. I feel like we're getting it. Let me give you guys a poll. Getting God Valley in this flashback. This has become my favorite flashback in One Piece. Usually, I feel like I think Robin's will always be the most emotionally powerful for me. For a while, I felt like Kuma's surpassed Robin's as the most emotionally powerful. I think I'm gonna go back to putting Kuma in second. I think just because Robin, at the time that I watched the flashback, when I was so young, I think that really hit hard. And then obviously the Saul scene really kind of ruined a lot of Robin's flashback for me and moved it down a peg. But I think with enough time, it's just the emotions I initially felt watching that flashback are not gonna change. So Robin's flashback is probably still gonna be my favorite flashback in One Piece, but this flashback just falls in a totally different category. Like, I feel like the story's building to a point it no longer even feels like, obviously it is a flashback, but it's so extensive, you know? It's kind of like Golden Age and Berserk doesn't feel like a flashback to me. It's so fucking long. Like, how do you even call it a flashback? It's technically a flashback, but it doesn't feel... It feels like something much more extensive than that. Obviously, this is not going to reach the length of Golden Age, but it's just getting very elaborate, and we're not even at God Valley yet. And God Valley, it feels like, will be at least multiple chapters, right? Yeah, God Valley we should be getting. Let's get stream likes up to 100 real quick. Duck20, something major happened. Seems like Roger changed as a person after God Valley. Yeah, the Holy Knight's not deploying anywhere. That is also very interesting, too. Axe D. Barlett, thanks for the 2. Morge, nice to meet you this past weekend at Hotel. I met a good number of viewers at, because I was at Anime NYC, so I'm interested, but at Hotel. Maybe at Yotel? Alright, well, I don't know what that means. Mr. MMF2, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 34 months. Yo Mojussi, nice looking setup. The cutting to the middle of Rox and Harold fight was wild. Also, any ideas on what Garling found in God Valley? I feel like it might have been what Garling found at God Valley. I feel like it might have been Uranus. I feel like that might... But if it was Uranus, then wouldn't they have just, like, raided it immediately and taken it? So that's the curious thing to me. I don't know. Like, why would they wait 2 years, whatever it is? For whatever it is, waiting 2 years is a strange, strange thing. That's what makes it complicated. Oh, at Yotel? I didn't want to dox you. Were you one of the people in our group? Oh, I was the dude in the blue white shirt with Inosuke's blade at hotel with the gang. Oh, nice to... Yeah, thanks for dropping through, man. Appreciate it. Mr. MMF2, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 34 months. Oh, no, we covered that. Just some guy with naturally wavy hair. What do you think Garling discovered on God Valley? What do I think Garling discovered on God Valley? So I guess that's like a... That's a common question. I really don't know. Do you guys have ideas? Because for me, it's just the if it's so valuable, why wait 2 years? One thing I've thought about before is like, what if it's got something to do with the Three-Eyed Tribe or something? Muhammad Kakar says Odin was Admiral level, nothing more, nothing less. I don't know. I think it's really hard to say because it's just like, we have so little to go off of for Odin. We have so little to go off of. All we know is that he seemed capable of beating Kaido in the past, right? We don't get a good sense of how strong, like how far removed from his prime Kaido was. That's the tricky thing. Yeah, like the stream. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Axe saying, I met Morge in person, he's tall as fuck. I'm not that tall in the grand scheme of things. I'm like 5'11", but most people assume I'm 6 feet because most guys lie about their height. So the way it goes is, like, I never have to lie about my height because other guys lie about their height, which then automatically raises my height. Does that make sense? So a lot of guys who are like 5'8" will say that they're 5'10". And then they'll point to me and be like, you're not 5'11", you're like 6'2", because they have to raise my height to maintain their lies. Does that make sense? So, or if there's a guy that's like 5'10", he'll say that he's 6 foot, but I'm taller than him. So he'll be like, you're not 5'11", you're actually like 6'2" or something like that, or 6'1", because they've got to maintain that they're 6 foot. So that's just the general thing that I've experienced. So it's kind of nice because it's just like, I never have to to pretend to be taller than I actually am, because as soon as I say I'm 5'11", every other guy around will basically be like, no, you're not 5'11", you're like 6 something, you're like 6 whatever, because they have to maintain that they're 5'10" or 5'11" or something like that, or 5'8". So it all just works out. The only place I lied about my height was back when I used to be on dating apps, because you just have to. Dating apps are like, that was the Wild West, you know? Like, on my Hinge profile in the past, I did have, like, 6 foot, just because that's, you just gotta, that's like a survival, you know? That's just, everybody's trying to gas themselves up as much as possible, you know? So it's just natural competition. It's just the way it is. And then if I showed up to dates, no girl would ever think that, like, oh, I'm not actually 6 foot, because they're so used to guys who are not actually 6 foot claiming that they're 6 foot. So from their perspective, I just look like I'm 6 foot. Like, my girlfriend did believe that I was 6 foot for like a long ass time, until at some point I told her, like, oh, I'm 5, like, I'm not actually 6 foot. And then she was shocked. She was like, what? It's just, it is what it is. Anyway, just some guy with naturally wavy hair. Thanks a lot. What do you think? No, we covered this. Oh, King G, thanks for the 2. Maybe the resource helped create Mother Flame. Oh, that's interesting. But would Garling really know? Garling might know about that, because he was turned into the science officer and shit, right? That's actually an interesting point. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Saeed Abdo with a good point. So, we talked about this recently, actually. I think almost in last stream. Shanks brought Whitebeard healing water from his hometown in the West Blue in Chapter 434. Yeah. And that, I think somebody in a previous stream even was like, is this a retcon? Because how could Shanks' hometown be in West Blue? Yada yada. It turns out Shanks was born on God Valley, so that's true. But God Valley disappeared, so that leaves a big question mark. Unless we actually got a hint that God Valley still exists somewhere and apparently still produces alcohol. Patrick Malone, thanks to the 5. Could Shanks being a child of destiny be tied to what makes God Valley special? Oh! That is a fascinating point. Would that also make Shamrock special? That is a crazy interesting point you just brought up. That's a really, really interesting point. That's a really, really interesting point. Fuck. Shanks being the child of... I'm very curious about the mom now. I'm very, very curious about the mom. It's also, this confirms that, you know, with Celestial Dragons, you don't have to be, like, pure-blooded Celestial Dragon. Like, so, does this make Bonnie essentially a Celestial Dragon? Right? Like, because apparently if a Celestial Dragon takes you as a wife and then has a kid, then you're still considered a Celestial Dragon. I know that was, like, semi-confirmed in the past, but this seems like it confirms it. Mark Krangle says, Yo, Morja just got the Yonko membership. Oh, nice. Make sure to check out the podcasts that come out with every video. Yeah, that's interesting. J.R. Killingham says, I think Shanks would be more special now since he strayed on the other path. I don't know. I always thought of Bonnie as a Celestial Dragon. Yeah, that's true. She is essentially a Celestial Dragon. I think that there is... some people are pointing out similarities between, like, Bonnie as a baby to Shamrock as a baby, visually, supporting potentially the theory that Shamrock is Bonnie's father. I think a lot could come full circle there, especially if Shamrock is set to return to the Elbaf arc, because he was kind of set up as the initial antagonist of Elbaf until he got replaced by Emu. You have to get disowned actively, yeah. Just some guy with naturally wavy hair says, is Garling a deadbeat or does he actually care about his wife? So that's a really, really interesting question because obviously Shamrock is taken back to Marija, right? And on top of that, Shamrock, during God Valley, he's saying, like, watch closely, kids. So he wants to impress his kids or whatever, right? But it's like... did he care about the wife as well? Or did he just care about the fact that he now has sons that maybe he considers could be strong fighters later on? Isis1155 says, why is no one talking about Child of Destiny potentially equals Child of D? Aw, shit. Is it like a Will of D and Celestial Dragon? If Shanks is a D, I think that... just tired of everyone being, you know, Will of D. Shit. Shanks' mom is Crocodile? That's very, very possible. Garling, not Shamrock. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious also who might end up... I'm very curious as to who's stronger between Garling and Shamrock, or if they're going to be comparable strength in different ages or something like that. I do feel now, like, just obviously we knew Shanks and Shamrock are twins, we've known that for some time, but I feel like just after having gotten the shot, like the visual shot of, sorry about that, I'm outside, it's got to be the way it is, this will turn off soon, hopefully. Just seeing the shot of them two as twins, like literally at birth, you know, side by side as babies, I am now more convinced that we will see Shanks fight Shamrock at some point in time. Cheesy Skull, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 14 months. Moria confirmed cross guild since he can read the poneglyphs. Yeah, maybe. Well, I'm not going to say confirmed, but just watch next Tuesday's video. Because I do believe what you're saying, but I'm not saying, like, it's confirmed myself either. But watch next Tuesday's video. FN says Garling because of the Gorsey buff. See, I thought that initially, but now it's like, do the Holy Knights all seem to have Devil Fruits as well? So it's like, it's complicated because the Gorosei seem to have just innate abilities that don't seem to be Devil Fruit abilities, because they're not given Devil Fruit text boxes, whereas the God's Knights are given Devil Fruit text boxes. The Gorosei, I feel like their abilities might be like given to them directly from Emu himself. So it's like, is it just a coincidence that none of the Gorosei ate Devil Fruits beforehand, or what? I don't know. And then the regeneration thing, that seems to have been confirmed to be a thing that both the Holy Knights and the Gorosei have. But the confusing part is that it seems like the Holy Knights... So the aging is my big question mark. Because on the one hand, we have Gunko, who doesn't age as a Holy Knight. But then you have Garling, who I believe is actually younger than Gunko, who does age as a Holy Knight, right? Then you have Sommers, who seemingly does age, like he was at God Valley apparently. Or at least he's met Gabon before, and he's grown older since then. So I'm just curious as to what is it about, like, why do the God's Knights have regeneration, but not, but there's inconsistencies about them aging or not aging, and then why do the Gorosei have both regeneration and don't age? I think that's a big question mark. Lekin Osagi says, like, Marty, the mother of Jesus. Mary, the mother of Jesus. They have no human father. I think the mom was already pregnant before Garling showed up. No. Come on, they look like Garling. They look like Garling. Tornado says, Garling found a road poneglyph. That's why Shamrock is the man marked by flames. Oh, that's interesting. But why would they leave it there at God Valley? No, actually, that could make a lot of sense, because shit. That could make a ton of sense, because I've theorized before that the God's Knights have the final road poneglyph, specifically Shamrock. So then, does that mean that Roger and Rox both failed to get that final road poneglyph? No, because they must have gotten the road poneglyph because they fucking, Roger was able to get to Laugh-Tail, right? Unless maybe they got a rubbing from God Valley, and then the rest... but then the actual physical poneglyph was held by was held by the world government. That's also possible. Growth Stonks, thanks for the 5. Shanks and Shamrock's mother might be based on Princess Carino, who was shown in early concept of One Piece, with Shanks being the leader of the Knights. Princess Carino? Who the fuck is Princess Carino? Let me look that up. That's interesting. Princess Carino. What? Karina? Karina from One Piece? This is just a... She's just from, She's just from, what do you call? What is it? She's just from The Thing. From the movie. Film Red. Not Film Red, Film Gold. Shanks being the leader of the Knights, though, I do remember that from early One Piece concept art. Knut Worgen, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 14 months. Do you think Rox is going to stay sympathetic, or will he do something really evil? If Uranus is at God Valley, maybe he threatened to use it to flood the world. Also, Emu's immortal. He can wait 2 years for it. But why wait 2 years? I just don't know. Uranus is at God Valley. Yeah, so the thing about Rox is that, like, right now, he just feels like a very sympathetic character. Even his escapades, right, like the pirate things that they do, so far they've never been shown doing anything to, like, good guys, you know? The island that they robbed, for instance, it was established that, oh, this is actually a fake charity or something like that that takes money and then doesn't give it back or whatever, right? So Rox so far just seems like an extremely likable, sympathetic character. I really, really like Rox so far. Great character, right? So my question now is just, I have a lot of thoughts on how, like, Blackbeard, we can agree, bad guy, right? Obviously some morally gray aspects, but overall being presented as a bad guy. Rox so far not really being presented as a bad guy. But I feel like there's something that happens with Rox that shifts his perspective. I want to save my thoughts on that for the moment, and I believe that also strongly shapes how Blackbeard grows up later and the beliefs that he has. But I do think that, I'll just say this right now, I feel like one of the themes for Rox going forward, now we're putting a few things together, is betrayal. I think that Rox is going to experience a lot of betrayal in his story, And that is going to influence his son Blackbeard quite a bit, in that Blackbeard flips the script, and Blackbeard growing up, he betrays people very regularly, right? Whereas Rox's strength is loyalty, I think the reverse will be true for his son, largely because of Rox's own experiences. So I think that Oda's painting a very interesting picture here, and I think the Rox and Harold dynamic is like a vital part of this story. This was actually a really fucking sad chapter to read, just seeing Rox and Harold fight like that, and Rox genuinely being really, really hurt to the core of his being by Harold essentially turning against him. Because Rox probably doesn't feel like he has real friends outside of Harold. I don't think he considers I don't know what he considers his crewmates to be, but I don't know if he considers them to be genuinely his friends. We also know that Roger had to fight against Rox at God Valley. So there's something that Rox does at God Valley that basically forces Roger into conflict with him, right? There's something that happens at God Valley that basically makes it so Rox needs to be defeated, even though so far it doesn't seem like he's doing anything bad. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Kyle Flanagan, thanks for the 5. Is it possible that Emu has the Davy Jones fruit? Dami Reversi feels like a supernatural version of the Davy Backfight, plus he rules the Abyss. Oh, shit. I would never have thought that. That is such a cool idea. I do think if that's the case, that then Blackbeard ultimately takes that fruit from Emu. That makes so much sense, because it's just like the Abyss concept, Davy Jones, that makes a lot of sense. And then on top of that, like the, Davy Backfight, like turning opponents into, like taking basically characters and then forcing them onto your side. And then the interesting thing is that Oda's always loved the idea of flipping on its head, like what does it mean to be a pirate versus like a king, a god, etc. Like what makes one good, one bad, or whatever. And he likes the idea that pirate figures can usurp power, and then all of a sudden they can call themselves a king or a god, etc. Right? But there's not really a difference between the two sides. It's just who has power and who doesn't. So the symbolism of Emu, in fact, actually being literally symbolized by a pirate's power, right? His ability is a pirate's ability, actually, and he essentially usurped power and took over the world. I think that would be a brilliant twist by Oda, and it lends credence to the idea that Blackbeard is ultimately going to take Emu's fruit, because really Blackbeard is the true modern day pirate, so him getting that fruit, it fits really well. Joaquin Perlas, thanks a lot. Don't you think it's a disaster that Moria's origin was revealed in a cover story 3 years after Wano? This is the type of thing we needed for Wano to connect to the outside world. So I actually kind of disagree. I think that's it's not like an SBS or anything that we're getting the reveal. I actually think that this is fine. Because I don't think it's I don't think getting the reveal about Moria stuff right there would have added anything really. Like, Moria's not a character in Wano. It's very different than, for example, finding out that Zoro, his Shimatsuki heritage, finding all that out through SBS. That feels very different, or Viva Card, or whatever the fuck. With Moria, this is a cool reveal post-Wano. I think it had to be saved post-Wano because of what it sets up for Moria's story going forward. I like this in that the traces were all there, and then, like, why was Moria fighting Kaido and everything? Like, it wasn't leaving like a big plot hole or question mark in Wano itself. None of us were like, wait, why is Moria fighting Kaido? It's just assumed to be like, well, Moria's a pirate. He tried to take on Kaido. He lost, right? Pirates do that sort of thing all the time, right? Oda leading up to this reveal post-fact adds a lot of depth to Moria's character, and I don't think Moria's story is done yet. I think that Moria's got a lot more to go, so I actually think it's okay. I think it legitimately wasn't the right time to find out about that in Wano. I actually almost feel like if we'd gotten that reveal in Wano, then readers would be complaining that, wait, why is Moria not returning back to Wano or something? Like, why is Moria not part of the arc? Because I remember actually in the early parts of Wano, even before we got the Oden flashback showing Moria fighting Kaido, in the early parts of Wano, a lot of readers were talking about speculation about like how Moria is going to come to the arc, how Moria is going to come to the island. That was a common theory at that point in time. So if we'd gotten that reveal in Wano itself, it would have added even more fuel to the fire for like Moria needs to come back. And Moria really didn't need to come back to the Wano arc. I don't think it was that important for him in the storyline. So I think it's good that Oda revealed it when he did, which is after the fact. It can add some depth going forward to Moria's story, and I don't think Moria's done as a character yet. But it would have just added another, what people would feel like is a loose end in the Wano arc itself, in my opinion. Yeah, let's get stream likes up to 150 real quick. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Has Moria's revelation altered your theory on him? It's actually... So, I'll say this. I already believed before this that Moria would be joining Cross Guild. This pretty much quadruples down that feeling. I'm not saying it's guaranteed or anything like that, but watch next Tuesday's video. It covers a lot of what I believe this leads to. But I already felt like Moria was going to be written to join Cross Guild. So this just adds, this feels like it practically guarantees it. Francisco Mas, thanks for being a Pirate King to your member for 35 months, man. Again, Pirate King podcast submissions are open right now if you want to join the Pirate King tier. It's an hour to hour and a half long podcast I drop every month where I answer every single Pirate King tier member's questions. You can ask questions about One Piece, but other anime, manga, movies, video games, TV, NBA, real life, all that stuff. Yeah, and I answer every question very in-depth in a manner in which I don't usually have time to do on streams, so if you want to check that out. But Francisco Mas, thank you for the long time support. Harold will help Rox in some way. That's what Emu referred to as his error and regain his honor. That will be the last time that they meet, and maybe he helps Rox survive God Valley and the world government knows. Ooh, shit. Francisco Mas, that is a phenomenal theory. That's a phenomenal theory. I'm going to jot you down for credit for that if that ever goes anywhere. Here. Hold on. That would also mean that it's possible, right? That would make it possible that Harold even shows up to God Valley. Because some people talked about how... I saw this on Twitter. Someone was talking about how, like... Dr. Pulse says, do you think Moria can read poneglyphs? Yes. I think that's a big part of his relevance to the story going forward. Some people talked about this on Twitter, which is like, we know at God Valley, Roger and Garp fought Rox, right? Together. It's possible that might actually be overkill at this point, because, like, you know, Roger and Garp are relative to one another. But I saw somebody on Twitter posting, what if Harold was also at God Valley? And Harold is the one who fought... Harold took Rox's side and Harold fought against Garp. That would be really cool because you got the parallels, obviously, of like Roger and Garp, friendly rivals or whatever, often on opposing sides, but then coming together to fight a greater evil. But then you got Rox and Harold, who are actually friends, turned rivals/enemies, but then they're being brought back together just because Harold realized at a certain point what is the right thing to do. So I'm really loving the Rox-Harold dynamic, their story. I feel genuinely sad reading what happened this chapter. I'm very much looking forward to some sort of redemption for Harold. And I do wonder if God Valley could be that incident that is referenced here. Because it has to be something soon, otherwise Rox supposedly dies, right? Bubble Bass says, so Moria would have escaped both Dofi and Blackbeard, let the man die already. I think it was established that Moria got away from the island. I think Blackbeard established that. Let's get the streamlights up to 200 real quick. Bubble Bass says, Harold lost his horns in God Valley. I like to think that Harold did legitimately remove his horns the way that it was said that he did, because I feel like he is the type of character that would do that. He has a lot of conviction and resolve. It's just... at the end of the day, like, he made a choice between his people and Rox, right? So I don't think this choice negates the fact that he has a very strong will and sense of conviction and wants to actually prove to his people the importance of peace and everything. Whatever says Moria is the man marked by flames. That would be crazy, but I don't think that that was necessarily the case. I don't know. guess the irony was that Garp was for the Giants being in the Navy. That's a good point. That's a good point. I also feel like, yeah, just the matchups line up well then, because Oda wants to give hype to all of these characters, right? And the way I speculated, I felt like it would have been Roger and Garp versus Rox initially, but then something else distracts Garp, so Garp has to go take care of that, and then it becomes Roger versus Rox 1v1. That was what I speculated at first. That scenario doesn't give as much love to Garp, because, you know, at the end of the day, then Roger gets to be the big hero, defeating Rox, yada yada. And you would get the sense that Garp is not as strong as Roger. I do think that Oda is really trying to maintain the idea that Garp is really is on that same level as Roger. So I feel like the simplest way to do that would be having the fight turn into Roger versus Rox and then Garp versus Harold, because Harold has been portrayed as essentially the counterpart to Rox. Moria will join Yamato's group. Shafi, please don't spam. But I do think that that's actually a really interesting possibility, because Moria is a warrior of Wano. I really don't know what the fuck Yamato's group is supposed to do, but maybe it's, maybe it's supposed to be relevant in some significant way. I feel like I could imagine a future where Yamato's group is a thing and Katakuri's group is a thing. Like, because Katakuri now leads the rest of the Big Mom Pirates. Yamato leading some of the remnants of, like, Wano figures and stuff like that. I feel like it could be cool to see where that goes. Silver King says, Harold is getting hate for choosing world government, even though it's justified. He's a king with responsibility over his people. So that's definitely true. Like, obviously it's... Like, obviously that makes sense. It makes sense logically why he would do that. I think the reason that Harold doesn't get the sympathy of readers as much in this case is because, like, we get that he had to make the choice that he did, in a sense, but I think it's two things. Two things in that, how do I say this? The first and biggest thing is that it doesn't feel like Harold is that torn up about it. So if I'm reading the chapter again, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, it doesn't feel like this is like, oh, when Sanji had to fight Luffy or something like that, you know? It doesn't feel like Harold is actually, like, deep down really hurting as much. It feels more like this is... Like, he says that he's torn and everything like that, but he's not, like... He's not, like... Like, his final words are, I'm a king, I can't throw him by people's lives by following a villain like you into a losing battle. Like, he's kind of being an asshole about it. Like, obviously, having to kill somebody, you can't be, like, nice about it to some degree, but, like, it's not like he's acknowledging he's not acknowledging that, like, he's doing something really shitty to his friend right here. Like, he's not acknowledging that, like, it doesn't feel like this really hurts me, but I have to do it. Like, that's not what he's saying to Rox. He's kind of just shitting all over Rox's, like, he's basically dismissing, he's acting like he and Rox were never friends. That's kind of what it feels like. I don't know. That's just kind of what it feels like to me. Maybe that's why it doesn't feel as sympathetic. Like, he does say, like, he does look sad, but it's kind of just the words that he's throwing out. He does look sad, obviously. It's just that the words that he's actually throwing out are, like, it feels like the least he could do when he's trying to kill Rox is, like, be apologetic about it and say that, like, I know this is shitty and I'm a piece of shit, but I just have to do it for my people. Instead, he's kind of berating Rox while doing it. I think that's it. Like, so even though he is obviously, he says he's torn, he seems like he's sad about this on the inside, like, his words just feel like, dude, like, if you're being an asshole, like, don't try to justify it. Like, why are you even trying to, like, just say, like, I'm sorry. You can, Like, it's One Piece. He could even just be saying, like, I'm sorry, but I have to kill you. I'm sorry, I have to kill you, or something like that. That's just the way that it might have to be, you know? There's other instances in One Piece where I feel like we get that same sort of energy, which is like, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this, but gotta kill you, right? I don't get, like, that's not how he's talking, you know? I feel like at minimum he should be saying sorry. That's it. Like, I'm sorry, I gotta do this. Yeah. I do hope that it can, I do hope that, what do you call? I do hope that there's a redemption moment for Harold here. Again, it's not so much redemption about, like, is he standing up for his people? Like, obviously he's making the right choice for, as far as he understands, in terms of, like, being a king and trying to do what's right for his people. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to prioritize your subjects or whatever over one friend. But, how he's going about it and the attitude that he's showing, it's being a shitty friend down to the end, you know? I do hope that Harold can redeem himself in some way in that. Now, the other reason that I feel like a lot of fans don't like what Harold's doing and, like, kind of just really dislike the character at this point, maybe not dislike him, but, like, I know for me, it just knocked Harold down a little bit in my favorite character rankings. I still understand why he's doing what he's doing. It's just, you can understand something and still not really, it can make you dislike the character a bit more, right? I think the other big reason is that Harold was given a very, very difficult choice. We know that Rox is very loyal, right? Rox kind of had a similar choice. It wasn't for the sake of his people, it's for his own ambition or whatever, but Rox was like, I'm never going to hurt Harold, even if it, like, takes me closer to my dream. Harold's dream is obviously more noble, it's to help his people, but the thing I'm getting to is basically, it feels like lots of times in One Piece, characters are given a very, very difficult choice. And the really exceptional characters are somehow able to find a middle ground or an answer or, like, the way around it or something. Like, they're able to come out of it doing something that resolves the issue in a very, like, impressive sort of way. Does that make sense? Like, there are times that characters will still just show a certain level of, like, well, I'm not gonna do, like, two wrongs don't make a right. Like, even if I'm being given a difficult choice, they're able to figure out a way to just make it work. And not break from, like, not do one dishonorable thing for the sake of upholding some other value. Does that make sense? Like, I think that's a thing that happens frequently in One Piece. With Harold, we don't really see that, like, the world government gives him an opportunity, and then literally the very next chapter it's shown him fighting Rox to the death, having taken that opportunity, you know? So I think that's the other big part of it. Like, in One Piece, we just have gotten used to characters doing, like, really, like, making really, really difficult decisions and making, like, big displays of honor and things like that. So it just feels a little jarring that Harold, from what we've seen, like, there wasn't a lot of in between. Like, it just jumped from point A to point B, and it's like, okay, fuck it, I'll take out Rox if you guys want me to take out Rox, you know? Yeah, Basim makes a good, like, this is what I'm saying. Oda has never written a figure like Harold to betray someone. Imagine Odin betraying someone. I think him assisting Rox in God Valley makes sense. I think Brook is going to be from God Valley BTW. Oh, that's an interesting idea. But yeah, Basim, that's pretty much exactly what I'm thinking, which is, it's just not, like, in other stories, it's maybe more common, but in One Piece, the really, really good characters, there's certain lines that they don't cross. They don't betray their friends. The really good characters don't. In Harold's case, obviously, he was given, like, a very, very hefty burden to carry, like, a very significant ultimatum to incentivize him to betray his friend. But so far in the story, it had just been the absolute standard that, you know, you don't betray your friend no matter what. So I think that jump for a One Piece character feels jarring. I do like that. I really like the idea that Harold comes in to help Rox at God Valley. I think that'd be really, really cool. And it could support the idea that, like, how did Rox potentially survive God Valley if he survived God Valley, like many believe. I like the idea that it's through Harold that it happened. And then it does put together a lot of things. Like Francisco Mas said, it puts together how, like, it would explain how, like, what's the mistake that was made by, it would explain the mistake that was made by, what do you call, the mistake that was made by, by Harold, right? Emu says that Harold made a mistake. I'm putting some shit together now. What if fucking Mosa is rocks? What if Mosa is rocks? Like, what the fuck? Wouldn't that be fucking insane? I want to go back and read Mosa's dialogue now. Let's see. When does... Wouldn't that be crazy? I don't think that's the case, but... Man. Oh, man. It would be really cool if Mosa is rocks. Where the fuck is he talking to Mosa? I think maybe 1136. Let's see. All right. No, I'm not seeing it. Man. Okay, one more back. Maybe 1135. 1135. Sorry, for chapter discussion streams, I can't show the chapter panels. But I do want to read that Loki Mosa dialogue again real quick. All right, I just don't fucking see it. Maybe it's one further back. Where the fuck does he talk to Mosa? Talk to Mosa already. God damn it. Anyone know the chapter? Now I'm sick of scrolling. I feel like I already missed. Oh, no, I found it. Okay. The Realm of the Dead. I guess you've also got nothing but free time, huh? No, he doesn't talk. Mosa doesn't talk like rocks. Mosa talks like some kind of a noble or duke. Yeah, no, Mosa's not. I don't think Mosa's rocks. Never mind. Doesn't make sense. Henchme976, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 4 months. This is all Ida's fault. She turned Harold into a wimp. I'm glad he turned her into a single mother and started a genetically superior family. Wow, what an insane comment. That's crazy. You've got all the themes of One Piece. You hit them right on the head. That's exactly the messaging that Oda wants you to take away. Let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. The first half of the chapter is exactly the type of stuff we've been begging Oda for the Strats for years. God damn, that's actually a really fucking cutting comment. Yeah, I just like seeing the old legends interact. It feels very, very organic. Like, that's such a fucking good point, man. That scene in the bar for them is just so... That's like such a natural, organic scene. It feels like such a natural, organic scene. And we get to see their personalities and how they bounce off one another. Also, I notice you guys looking at my shirt. I know you don't get quite the best view of it right here. Right here, let me just lean back real quick so you guys get an idea. This is the Chopper shirt. This is the Chopper shirt. Also produced by Gomu. A lot of you like their Gears shirt, so if you like the Chopper shirt, you can get that as well. I'm dropping the link right here. Dropping the link right here for the people. So make sure you go check that out. Pinning that link for everybody that wants to check out the shirt. The shirt is only available. This one's only available for a week. So if you want the Chopper tee, we got literally this is a narrow window. Yeah, Gears tee is gone right now. I think Chopper tee is all we got. I think we got it for 1 week. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Could Garling be Bonnie's father since his whole stick seems to be impregnating non-celestial dragon women? Garling is Bonnie's father. I would have assumed it's Shamrock, personally, but Garling could also have been that. I think it might just run in the family like, you know, father teaches son. Andrew Anderson, thanks for the 10. Great video Tuesday. And thanks for adding the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Raid Shadow Legends. I really appreciate it. No problem. I definitely was the one that suggested that they do that. Yeah, thanks. I think the Davy Jones stuff is really fucking fascinating. I do think that is a potentially... I'm leaning towards now that it might be a fruit. I'm leaning towards Davy Jones being the source of a devil fruit. I think that'd be really cool to see in the hands of Blackbeard at the end of the story. Hongshu, me, thanks for the 5. Moria's reveal now is intentional. Zombies are rocks pirates, God values thriller bark, and Moria is in Hachinosu right now. Ors is a Galila giant. Ors being a Galila giant, that's a good theory, but I do think that the Moria stuff is about to become very, very important. Like, I think Oda's introducing this at a significant time in the story. Watch out for next Tuesday's video. I'm going to go more in depth in that. Cody Abbott, thanks for the 2. Dragon keeps falling in hype importance, just me or question mark. What's interesting is I feel like it's almost like the fact that like Dragon's not even like Shanks is getting obviously a lot of attention. His family's getting a lot of attention. All these old legends are getting attention. Dragon is like this missing piece. Oda's just not even like Dragon almost exists in like in his own separate little universe. He's never in the current modern day story. He's never talked to anybody outside of his Revolutionary Army commanders. He's never fucking interacted with any other top tier. He's just never fought anybody, never made any moves. He's in this little bubble. It's like you trace back a character like Shanks or Whitebeard or whatever. There's so many stories of like their past interactions. It's like you hear about like how Whitebeard obviously fought with Roger back in the day, and then supposedly all of the Yonko on their come up, they would fight territory wars with Whitebeard and things like that. Obviously the whole Marineford thing. Then Shanks, there's so many stories. It's like Shanks took out Loki. Shanks used to have duels with Mihawk. There's narrative and lore. Dragon, there's fucking nothing. We just don't know anything. So for me, it's almost like Oda sticking to that angle for Dragon of just like, in a way, the max hype is nothing at all, right? Like, in a way, it depends. I think Oda's kind of fumbling it a little bit by continuously showing Dragon, like, sweating about and confused about shit, you know? But outside of that, in a way, Dragon just being this, like, void, this black box that seems to exist in his own plane that just doesn't interact with not even the rest of the modern day One Piece world. He's just never done anything as far as we've I'm not saying in terms of achievements, right? Obviously the Revolutionary Army has done a lot in terms of achievements, but I'm saying in terms of like you just don't even hear stories of like Dragon fought this dude in the past or this admiral or like or this clash with this group or anything like that. You have nothing. We have no idea about what the fuck this character did. We don't see glimpses of him in these old school flashbacks, like this whole Rocks flashback and everything like that. Oda's just keeping the mystery at its maximum with Dragon, and I feel like that's effective in its own way, at least to me. I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up seeing a young Dragon in this flashback, but it's just fascinating that we're this deep in the story. We're this deep in the flashback, and we're finding out about like Blackbeard and Blackbeard's birth, Shanks' birth, fucking Shamrock's birth, or whatever. Dragon should be alive and kicking, and in his teens or whatever at this point in the story, nothing. No clue, nothing about him. The Dagda, thanks for the 10. Hey, Morge, enjoy watching your streams. What do you think of the Rocks paralleling the worst generation like Big Mom to Bonnie, Beige to Marlon, or Civilax and Shiki to Kid and Killer? I think that those parallels are a little too tight. I think it's too specific. I think some parallels that Oda wants to make clear are clear, right? Roger to Rocks. Roger and Rocks, Luffy and Blackbeard, right? I think other ones are stretching a bit. I think outside of the hair, I'm like, what's the parallel between Big Mom and Bonnie? Oh, actually, fucking Bonnie eats a lot and Big Mom eats a lot. And they're both freakishly strong as children. Never mind, that's maybe you're onto something. Maybe you're onto something. But beyond that, I don't think... Fuck, maybe Kid and Shiki. Beige to Marlon. Oh man, that's actually very interesting. Maybe I spoke too soon. I might have spoken too soon. I do think that there is I think Loki, by the way, is going to be Luffy's like if there is a parallel figure, like people are often like, who's Luffy's Whitebeard if Luffy's supposed to have a Whitebeard? I feel like Loki, once freed, could play that role of like someone in his generation that's a pirate that's like actually a true rival figure to him. Knut Worgen, thanks for the 2. Great point. Harold breaking his horns for rocks would hit hard. That is really interesting. Yeah, if that's the reason that he does it. I really hope we get some redemption for Harold here. Name, thanks for the 5. Mork, Rock seems like one of the few characters who knows the hidden lore. What do you think the chances are the Will of D is Will of Davy Jones? So, this has been brought up in past streams, and I talk about it actually in a recent Patreon podcast. The Will of D being the Will of Davy Jones. So, I'll start with this. One of the fascinating things about how Oda's writing Rock so far is that we're getting so much characterization for him, but the things that Oda is keeping from us that I imagine we'll get later, maybe at God Valley or something, are Rock's core motivations and what shaped them, right? We understand what he generally wants, but we don't know why or the specifics of what he's driving towards, right? The will that he's following, we just know he's a worshiper of Davy Jones, things like that. I think that's fascinating. We still don't really know Rox's past or backstory, right? We jump into his story at the point that he's kicking off everything. Like, he's kicking off his goals, right? But we miss what formed those goals. I think that's really, really intelligent writing because it keeps the mystery alive for us. And it just makes Rox a very fascinating character to keep trying to learn more about. Now, Will of Davy Jones. So with the Will of Davy Jones, here's the thing. The only way the Will of D is the Will of Davy Jones, in my opinion, is if Joy Boy himself is actually, his true name is Davy Jones. That's something that has been speculated on in streams by y'all too. Because so far the Will of D as we know it, it's what's written on the poneglyphs, right? And the poneglyphs are written by Joy Boy. Everything that the poneglyphs say, like, do this, do that, this is my will, yada yada, it's all coming from Joy Boy. Like, Roger even reads the final poneglyph and he's like, Joy Boy, what a crazy story or whatever, right? It's all Joy Boy's messaging. So it's Joy Boy's will at the end of the day. So the only way the Will of Davy Jones can be, or sorry, the Will of D can be the Will of Davy Jones is if Joy Boy is literally Davy Jones and they're synonymous, or if Davy Jones was like maybe some mythical figure from the first world or something even, and then Joy Boy's carrying his will, so there's someone even preceding Joy Boy. That would be fucking insane. Jumbo Dumbo, thanks for the 2. Mosa is Rox's wife. Oh shit! Yeah, I forgot. There might be characters that we haven't even like really met or realized that might be Mosa. Dimian Wright, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 24 months. Akainu is also a significant character with ties to Dragon. Maybe their stories are interwoven briefly. Maybe we'll get them back to back. That's a very good point. Akainu is another major missing character, like very important character that we have not yet seen much of or gotten much past lore of. Like, it's interesting with the big 3 admirals. Kuzan we now get a lot of previous context on, obviously. Kizaru even we get a lot of previous context on. Akainu, the most important of the trio, he's the one that's missing. So maybe we get a bit of Akainu and Dragon in this flashback. Paul, thanks for the 2. What do you think of the come fruit theory? I don't know what that means. Interesting theory. Pasty Cash says Mosa is Moria. Apparently from the style of speech that Mosa has, someone like Moria wouldn't fit. What if Shaggy is Luffy's auntie and Boa Hancock is his cousin? So what was funny, wasn't it Buggy who was like, what if, does that make Rayleigh Luffy's uncle? So does it open up the possibility of Rayleigh being Luffy's uncle for real? Shaggy and Rayleigh, I don't know, maybe. Henchme976 says, are people just grouping the Deskmen together? I think people group Akainu and Dragon together because Akainu is very obsessed with the idea that like Luffy is Dragon's son. He's like, I'm not gonna let that like Dragon's son survive, etc. And he had a big vendetta against Luffy for being Dragon's son. Now that could easily just be explained because like Akainu just hates criminals and Dragon is the world's worst criminal. It's the same reasoning why Akainu wants to kill Ace, right? So it might not be anything personal, but I think people like the idea that it was something personal, and also the fact that Dragon was part of the Marines for some period of time, so I imagine he would have been a fast-rising figure, much like Akainu. Let's check Dragon's age real quick. One Piece Dragon age. Dragon is the same age as Akainu. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. They might have been co-recruits. That's a really, really big deal. Shit, what if Dragon and Akainu fight? I kind of removed the possibility in my head of Dragon and Because people are usually like, Akainu's enemy is either going to be Sabo or Luffy, right? Luffy or Sabo. I mean, I lean towards it being Luffy personally. But obviously, Dragon Akainu, that's something that is on the cards. It is definitely potentially possible. It's just, shit, I always thought it would be more interesting if Dragon fought, like, one of the elders, like the Celestial Dragons or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, let me throw you guys a quick thing. Hold on. Who fights Akainu? Yeah, I always felt like Dragon versus an Elder would be good. And recently I've started to feel like Dragon versus Garling. I know that's a popular idea. Let's get the streamlights up to 200 real quick, because we're almost there. Patrick Malone, thanks for the 5. Tinfoil Hat Theory, Davy Jones was Joy Boy's successor as Nika, who twisted his will. That's how the will of Davy Jones is also Joy Boy's will. Oh, interesting. In my mind, Sabo versus Akainu would be just absolute ass. I think I do think that stems from a lot of people who are just like still salty about Ace losing to Akainu, so they want to see essentially a run back. So they want Ace 2.0 to fight Akainu rather than like storytelling reasons where Luffy's entire fucking like there's so much more for Luffy versus Akainu. Like it's so much more deeply personal between Luffy and Akainu. Like Luffy actually endured that story. Actually had Akainu kill his brother in front of his eyes. And then was fucking permanently scarred by it. Like, literally, Akainu permanently scars him. Sabo fucking read about it in a newspaper. And was like, oh no! I fucking forgot all this shit. There's just so... It's infinitely less dramatic to have Sabo face Akainu than have Luffy face Akainu. Like, Luffy still... Akainu is the only character in One Piece where when Luffy hears his name, he legitimately gets personally pissed off. The only character in One Piece. You could argue maybe Blackbeard, but Akainu, like, just hearing his name pisses Luffy off. Like, there's something very deeply ingrained there. So I just think it's so much more powerful to see Luffy come full circle and face Akainu. At the same time, just because I think something is ass doesn't mean that it won't happen, you know? I really just think it's like, literally, a lot of the reasoning, when you ask people, like, why they want Sabo to beat Akainu, a lot of times I see some of the people's reasoning being, like, to prove that the fire fruit can beat the magma fruit. I think there's a lot of readers that are actually fixated on that, like, why is the magma fruit superior to the fire fruit? So I've seen people go as far as, like, well, what if Sabo unlocks, like, blue flames, and that's even stronger than Akainu's magma? It's just like, okay, so it's not about the character writing and the storytelling, it's literally just, like, you wanted Ace to beat Akainu, and you don't like the idea that Ace's ability was just worse than Akainu's. So, like, people want to see... Like, they think it's about fire versus magma or something. And I'm just like, that's... To me, that's stupid. But I do legitimately see that being a lot of the reasoning around Sabo versus Akainu. It's like, well, fire should... It's to prove the fire fruit kid awakened or something can beat the magma fruit. It's like... I don't know. That's not what I took away from Breen Ford as being important. But, again, maybe Sabo versus Akainu is a thing. I think it's possible. I think that Akainu is the only person who broke Luffy. Yeah, I just think the storytelling is just so powerful. Like, around the main character, for the main character, the storytelling is so powerful. I also think it would be really strange if, like, Luffy goes the entire story with never actually having, like, a significant Marine fight. Like, because from the beginning of the story, the Marines were Luffy's enemies. Like, that's actually one of his first matchups, right? Axe and Morgan, right? And the Marines versus Pirates, that's the dichotomy that's played up throughout most of the story. Fucking the entire Marine Ford War, Pirates versus Marines, right? I'd just be shocked if, like, we get to the end of One Piece and at no point did Luffy ever actually fight a significant Marine, you know? Silver King, thanks for the 2. Dragon versus Garling, Luffy versus Kainu, Sabo versus Shamrock. I think Sabo fights Green Bull. That's my thought. I think there's evidence for that. I think that a lot of Sabo theories about who he's gonna fight just don't make any sense because Sabo's he can't be strong enough to fight the characters that people pit him against. Unless you think Shamrock's like very weak or doesn't have Conqueror's Haki, but Sabo's not a Conqueror's Haki user, so I don't know how he would win the fights people are talking about, you know? I can't even imagine how Sabo beats a Kainu. Cause like, let's say Kainu never unlocks Conqueror's Haki, which is possible, right? Even in that case, a Kainu in Marineford was going toe to toe with like fucking Whitebeard, world's strongest man. How is Sabo gonna be stronger than fucking Marineford Whitebeard without Conqueror's Haki? I just don't understand. Madfish, thanks for the 20. I'm reading Fire Punch, but deeper themes and through lines always go over my head. Can you tell me what to pay attention to or look for? I'd like to appreciate it as much as you've said you did. Hope all is well in Morge World. So I don't know how deep you are into Fire Punch, but I would say the simplest things to think about are okay, there's a few things, right? What does the cold wasteland represent as you go over the course of the story? What does fire represent as you go over the course of the story? So think about those. What does the notion that the I assume you're at the movie, like the attempts to start creating a movie, right? What is the drive behind trying to create a movie out of all of this existence? Like, what is the drive behind that? And what is the author saying in terms of people being cast as actors in this movie? And then as the story goes on, think about how identities shift and how people tend to grapple with or accept that or adjust as identities shift, and how people's own motivations, they're willing to shift those or transform those or rewrite those as time goes on. Think about those concepts, and then by the end of it, think about what Fujimoto is basically saying about life and how we attempt to create meaning in life. I think one of my favorite ideas in Fire Punch is just like, it's not story number 500 about like what is the meaning of life. It's literally a commentary on why and how we are so desperate to create meaning in life, and the lengths that we go to concoct this notion of meaning, and how we all manufacture this shared narrative that we all collectively sort of agree on and cast ourselves in sort of these roles and as characters essentially in order to fulfill this burning need. The Dagda, thanks for the 10. Thanks. Just to clarify, it thought Kid/Killer thing is based on Gold and Silver theme, and Bonnie thing is if Momo is Kaido parallel, then it makes a potential relationship with Bonnie very interesting. Oh, Momo is Kaido parallel. Oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't think about it like that. But yeah, they are in the same age group. That's actually a really, really cool idea. That's funny. Momo being the Kaido parallel of this generation. Bassam, thanks a lot. Maybe Harold feels guilt for not joining Rocks. He turns down Emu later. That's why this flashback is Rocks focused. We need to see why Harold died. Maybe Harold feels guilt for not joining. I feel like if Rocks died, then Harold wouldn't just turn down Emu after that. You know, because Harold was willing to kill Rocks himself to a degree. So I think Harold would still want what Emu promised for Elbath, you know? We need to see why Harold died. You know what's interesting? If Harold saved Rocks and secretly kept him alive on Elbath or something, like somebody earlier on speculated, then I wonder if Rocks was one of the people that, like, if it wasn't just Loki that took down Harold, but if it was also Rocks and Loki together or something that took down Harold. Because, like, Rocks and Harold are already basically portrayed as equals. If Harold was Dami reversied and turned into this, like, amped up version of himself, that's essentially the strongest character in the story, outside of, I suppose, Emu, Joy Boy, I guess, themselves. So it would need a team up to take him down, right? I've extreme difficulty imagining Loki beating Harold on his own. I know that there are other giants involved, like obviously when Loki arrives, other giants have skewered Harold, but from what we know, you need Conqueror's Haki, like a specific application of Conqueror's Haki to get by the regeneration, right? So I don't know what those other giants, if they even damaged Harold at all, right? Loki was very specific, like, okay, I remember I had to do something specific with my Conqueror's Haki to be able to fight Harold. So, yeah, I'm just like, wouldn't it require two really, really top-tier Conqueror's Haki users to take down Harold? I just can't imagine Loki doing it on his own. Even if, like, let's say we go to extreme lengths and say that Loki is... Like, I used to assume, before when we were introduced to Loki and then we learned he had a dad, Harold, etc., I think most people assumed, based on the hype Loki was getting, that Loki was the strongest giant Elbaf had, right? And then as time went on, especially because the rumors were that Loki killed Harold, right? Then as time went on, now we're starting to realize that, no, Harold was like the tippy top tier. And we know that Loki lost to Shanks. I think that it's really hard to imagine the hierarchy being like Harold and Rox as equals, then like Dami reversing Harold, then Loki, then Shanks, right? Even if you think Shanks is like stronger than Rox or something like that, even if you believe that, I think it's like many leaps to then be like, well, Shanks is like that much strong. Like he's like, he can beat a guy that can beat a guy that can beat a guy that can beat Harold. Like, I think that's, I don't know. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Does Sabo have the same narrative problem as Yamato? I think Sabo's setup is a lot better than Yamato's. I just think that I do feel still to some degree like Sabo's existence is partially because Oda just did not like the idea of like truly committing to killing off Luffy's brother, so he gave Luffy a second. Part of it is just that like when Ace is killed off, that's the same time that we're learning about the existence of Sabo. So I think, and like how Luffy actually had a bond with both of them, and he had 2 brothers, yada yada. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm getting rid of Ace, but don't worry, we're getting a backup Ace. Like, we've got a backup Ace or whatever. But I think Oda's carved out a good, interesting story role for Sabo. A unique and compelling story role for Sabo. I definitely don't think Sabo's nearly as poorly written as Yamato. I don't think Sabo's poorly written in general. I just think that it's a little bit... I think Sabo's existence bothered me for some time because of how I felt it neutered to some degree, not absolutely, but to some degree, the loss of Ace. But ultimately he's his own character, and it leads to interesting storylines. Omar Garcia, thanks for the 10. I've always liked the idea that Sabo would fight and lose against Akainu, but Dragon comes in and saves him. I think this parallel would make sense since Oda likes flipping situations. So I've actually been on that train too, but swapped Dragon for Luffy. Because I like the idea that, you know, a large part... Like, what Akainu represents is Luffy's greatest loss. The moment that he failed because he was too weak to protect his brother. And in fact, he had to be protected by Ace yet again, like it always been the same story since childhood, right? That's what Akainu represents. Luffy's greatest moment of failure, his greatest weakness, right? I like the idea that with Sabo, the same situation can play out again. But, like, again, growing up, Luffy's whole thing, like, he was the little brother that had to be protected. He was weak. He was not as strong as Ace and Sabo. I love the idea that a time will come. Like, even in Dressrosa, by the way, like, Sabo still swoops in and protects Luffy one last time. I think that is the last time in the story that, like, it's fitting in that at that point in the story, Sabo is still stronger than Luffy, but that's really the last point in the story that Sabo's above Luffy. Like, after that, if not by whole cake, then definitely by Wano, Luffy surpasses Sabo, right? So I like the idea of things coming full circle, and now Sabo being potentially at the mercy of Akainu, and Akainu's going to take another brother from Luffy of Luffy's from him, but this time Luffy doesn't let it happen. I like that idea a lot. It brings things full circle, and this time Luffy can give Akainu an actual beatdown. It resolves basically Luffy's main character struggle from the whole Luffy Ace Sabo flashback, which was like Luffy had these big dreams, like bigger ambitions than even his older brothers did, but they looked down on him because he was weak, and they always had to protect him. And then that continued all the way through to Marineford, Luffy had to be protected yet again by his older brother, and this time it was at the cost of Ace's life, right? So that's why post Marineford, Luffy is beating himself up, blaming himself for his weakness. He's like, I'm no Pirate King, I'm still weak. Like, at the end of the day, nothing had changed since he was a child. I think we need that moment where things finally change from when Luffy was a child, where now he can finally protect Sabo. I think that's very much a reason why even in Dressrosa, Oda had Sabo step in and save Luffy's ass one last time, because that's just a reminder of this is still what the dynamic is, but from here on, Luffy's going to change that. I don't think that's Sabo hatred. I think it's just anybody that I think I don't understand. I would love for Sabo fans to explain to me like how he's written to be a top tier character or anything if he's not written to be a Conqueror's Haki user. Like, he's written to be very different from Luffy and Ace. He's not a Conqueror's Haki user. I figure Oda would have given him Conqueror's Haki if that's his role, you know? Yeah, Mark, I agree with you. Mark Krengle. My thought is Green Bull becomes a Holy Knight and will fight Sabo. I think that's pretty good. Like, defeating an Admiral, I don't know how much more Sabo fans would want out of him. Yeah, I think we've gone a little off track with all the Sabo discussion here. Hirantha says, can you give your thoughts on how strong Mihawk is? This is so difficult. The fight we saw just now between Rox and Harold, pure swordsmanship, start to finish, right? I'm not somebody that subscribes to Mihawk is the strongest swordsman of all time or something like that, or Mihawk's a stronger swordsman than Roger, Rox, Harold, etc. But Mihawk is obviously the strongest swordsman of today, right? Meaning that, let's say Mihawk and Shanks are having that duel that Rox and Harold are having, Mihawk is kicking Shanks' ass, right? We are at a point where the further and further we're seeing of Conqueror's Haki, we have yet to see anything that could suggest that Shanks has some additional ability that could beat Mihawk outside of what we saw with Joy Boy's Hakinan, right? At this point in the story, I think it is very, very... How do I say this? I think there is... I don't want to get into Mihawk Shanks stuff here, but I do think it is now very, very likely that Mihawk, if he's not as strong as, like, Roger, Rox, Harold types or whatever, I think he'd be just, like, a hair underneath that. I think that's where I'd put Mihawk at minimum. I'd say, like, at minimum, Mihawk is, like, the tip-top of Yonko level, but he could easily be, at this point, I guess the range that you guys gotta understand, for me, a lot of these characters, I put them in ranges, because we still have yet to find out what exactly, there's too much ambiguity at the top, right? Too much ambiguity. So I put characters at ranges, right? So, like, for example, I put Shanks' range, I think, is, like, at his weakest, he's equal to Kaido, and at his strongest, he's, like, equal to Roger. Maybe in some world you could argue that if Oda really is, because Oda has a lot of attachment to Shanks as a character, Child of Destiny, maybe Shanks is even secretly above Roger. I think that's his max range or something, okay? But I think more likely my range for Shanks is like equal to Kaido at minimum, equal to Roger at maximum, something like that. I would say Mihawk's range is above Kaido at minimum. I'd say, like, equal to the likes of Roger at maximum or something like that. So, just because of, like, narrative significance, I think I give Shanks a higher potential ceiling of where I could range him, like, maybe above Roger. But unlikely. Like, think about it like that. I could see maybe Shanks being above Roger if Oda really likes Shanks that much, but I view it as unlikely. But I feel very safe saying that Shanks is, at minimum, equal to Kaido. Okay, just based on Oda's significance that he's placed on Shanks, right? With Mihawk, I think there's no chance Mihawk is below Kaido. So I put Mihawk's floor above Kaido. And in this world, like, Mihawk would be above Shanks, right? But in terms of ceiling, I just think it's very unlikely still that Mihawk is equal to the likes of Roger, like Prime Roger, Prime Rocks, Prime Whitebeard. I think even Mihawk himself doesn't seem to think that based on Marineford. Q, lots of people angrily typing insane, nonsensical reinterpretations of like Mihawk measuring distance at Marineford that make absolutely no fucking sense based on Mihawk's own reactions to that scene and what the purpose of that scene, what it was illustrating, right? So I just don't think Mihawk is equal to those Prime guys. I think it's unlikely, but I do put it in the realm of possibility now. I put it like, I'd say that's like where I think Mihawk's ceiling would be. I know people argue that, well, Zoro's supposed to become the world's strongest swordsman ever. Even if that is your point of view, that he's supposed to be the strongest swordsman of all time, that's not something Zoro himself has ever said that he wants to be. But if your view is that Zoro's supposed to be the strongest swordsman of all time, he can beat Mihawk and still become the strongest swordsman of all time without Mihawk also being the strongest swordsman of all time. That doesn't, like, that's always baffled me, because it's like, if you beat a character, right, that doesn't mean that your new ranking is like one spot above the character that you beat. Mihawk can be a hair below Roger and Rocks and stuff like that, and Zoro can beat Mihawk and then be above Roger. Like, that's also a thing. Or he can beat Mihawk and then be tied with Roger. Like, I don't get why people are like, well, Mihawk has to be this level for Zoro to reach this level. No, it's like Zoro beat fucking King, and that doesn't mean that Zoro's like now one spot in the tier list above King, or like the character rankings above King. You look at people's fucking lists, a lot of people have wrote Zoro now several spots above King. So I think that that's one thing that's never made sense to me, which is like, they especially because S-Hawk exists, and S-Hawk is designed to be a stronger version of Mihawk, and I feel like a lot of signs point to Zoro fighting S-Hawk as well. Anyway. Myra Sharma says Mihawk can fight Mihawk, but I don't think he can beat him. It might be a matchup thing too. I think it's the other way, where like, from everything we've seen from Kaido, he has a terrible matchup with swordsmen. Like, genuinely fucking terrible. Because, like, he struggled, like, so the first fight, major fight, like, if you count all three swordsmen that Kaido fights, he does very poorly for what he should be able to do, right? Odin, that seemed like an L, right? And Odin obviously nowhere close to Prime Mihawk, right? Now you could argue, well, Kaido was not at full strength at that point, right? Okay, not at full strength. All right, modern day, Kaido fights Big Mom. Big Mom, obviously not as strong of a swordsman as Mihawk, and Kaido doesn't beat her. It's a draw. Okay, you could argue that, well, Kaido didn't go absolutely all out. He didn't do his full, like, hybrid form and everything like that. That's fair, but Big Mom also didn't do everything she could do, because we know that her final form is the form where she's, like, ingested all of her souls and becomes, like, the giant version of herself. So, like, essentially base Kaido equal to base Big Mom in sword fighting. We don't know how hybrid Kaido versus Amp Big Mom would go or whatever. Let's assume Kaido wins, but clearly, like, it's not a huge gap between Kaido and Big Mom. And Big Mom is not as good of a swordsman as Mihawk, for sure, right? So it's like, okay, we haven't even gotten to, like, stuff like Kaido already he doesn't just beat, if he can't just beat Big Mom in a straight-up weapon, like, in a straight-up fight, right, when she's pretty much just using her sword, right? I don't really know yet what the argument would be for Kaido beating Mihawk outside of Kaido, well, let's say, okay, Kaido's got his hybrid form, right? So, let's talk about the hybrid form then. The one swordsman that Kaido goes up against in his hybrid form is Zoro, and it's embarrassing for Kaido, considering Zoro severely handicapped, with, like, all the bones in his body pretty much broken, right? Zoro's at, like, 1% HP. He has one singular, like, clash with Kaido before Zoro's even got his Conqueror's Haki mastered. So I think most people would agree that this version of Zoro is, like, nowhere fucking close to Mihawk. Kaido has one clash with him, loses and gets scarred for life, right? And then after that, Zoro's out of commission because he's out of HP. So it's just like, obviously that scar didn't, like, defeat Kaido or anything like that. But the point is that, like, a singular taste of fighting against, like, a strong swordsman fucked up Kaido, like, permanently, literally permanently. And that's nowhere remotely close to what Mihawk could do. Like, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that every single one of Mihawk's attacks is probably stronger than the attack that Zoro hit Kaido with. I don't think that would be an exaggeration to say, considering Mihawk actually has Conqueror's Haki mastered, right? So I don't know what evidence you would have that Kaido could handle Mihawk if a single attack from a much, 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 much weaker swordsman immediately leads to that for Kaido. Like, if he fought Mihawk, his body would be, like, fucking torn to shreds, right? I just don't know what the argument, like, maybe Kaido and Mihawk are about on the same level, but it would be a very bad matchup for Kaido. So, like, there's just no evidence in Kaido's favor against Mihawk, because you just look at all of his swordsmanship matchups, he's never looked good against a swordsman. Odin, Big Mom, Zoro, and, like, while you can make excuses for Odin and Big Mom, like, okay, well, Kaido's not at his prime, or Kaido didn't use all of his abilities or whatever, with Zoro, there's no excuse, because it's like, dude, the dude is, like, literally dead. He's, like, got 1% HP. He doesn't even know how to use his Conqueror's Haki properly yet. Like, it's so far removed from the level of Mihawk. And Kaido has one clash. He only has to take one attack, try to block one attack from Zoro. He can't, and gets scarred forever. There's no argument. Like, I would love to know what the argument is for Kaido against Mihawk. JS Baru FX says Kaido nearly annihilated Gear 5 Luffy, so the prediction doesn't make sense. Yeah, but we're talking about swordsmen here, aren't we? I don't see what the Luffy matchup, how that would be relevant to the Mihawk situation. And the last thing with the Zoro situation, too, is that you can't even argue that Kaido wasn't taking Zoro seriously or that he was holding back, because it was actually established in the previous chapters that Kaido was very, very scared of getting cut by Zoro because he sensed Odin's presence in Enma or whatever. So, like, out of all the rooftop fighters up till that point, it was established that Kaido and Big Mom were both most worried about taking damage from Zoro's attacks. So, there's no excuse for Kaido. Like, it's not like he underestimated Zoro or something. If anything, it was established he was on extremely high alert regarding Zoro's sword, because it was giving him fucking PTSD. So he was like, I don't want to get hit by that dude's attack. He still couldn't stop it from Zoro with, like, again, 1% HP. Zoro was literally in a full body cast after this. Couldn't stop Zoro at 1% HP before Zoro even had his Conqueror's Haki mastered. So it's just like, Kaido would just be sashimi against Mihawk. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. There's no way Oda would ever confirm that strength level for Zoro, though. Only toxic Zoro fans would hang their hat on that without hard confirmation. I don't know. I think we just gotta wait and see. Stan says power scaling is pointless. Oda just was giving Zoro his moment. That doesn't... Wait, so then how are we ever supposed to... What? How are we supposed to know anything about anything ever? Isn't everything just giving everybody their moment? Fooly Cooley says Morge be glazed in Zoro lol. I'm literally just saying what happened in the story. The story glazed Zoro itself, you know? Let's get the streamlights up to 250 real quick. Abhishek Sharma says, hey Morge, love from India. Watching your videos for a while now. You're my favorite One Piece creator. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Desir T O says, Morge, what do you think of Mihawk potentially having other forms? Well, I was about to say that's ridiculous, but then I remembered fucking Ashura. Maybe that's a thing. That's the other part, which is like, there are still things about Conqueror's Haki that we just don't know. Like, how... Like, do other characters... Is it just Zoro who's able to create another form with Conqueror's Haki, or are other characters able to do it as well? Dr. Farewell says the egg on Roger's ship is what Garling was referring to on God Valley. The thing is, I think we saw in chapter 1096, I think we already saw that there was an egg on Roger's ship from before God Valley, but I might be mistaken. Fading Face says, I just can't see a guy who's stronger than Shanks fight Vista the way Mihawk did, lol. Yeah, the Vista thing is like, it's in it, like, the further we go in the story, the more inexplicable it is. Because, like, way back when, it was almost like understandable because it was like, okay, well, other admirals are being stalled by these commander figures and stuff like that. So like, maybe this is just a thing. But then as we've gone on and gone on, it's like we realize that okay, the Yonko characters that Mihawk is being compared to and has to be stronger than, right? There is no like Yonko can literally breathe on the not literally, but Yonko can it's close to this. They can practically just breathe on a commander level character and wipe them out. Like it's close to that level of gap. Like it stops even being about like, well, Mihawk was holding back. It feels like almost impossible to imagine how hard a character would have to be holding back if they're like, Pirate King level as people believe Mihawk to be, or like above Pirate King level as people believe Mihawk to be, like Ryuma level or whatever the fuck that imagined level is. And then even have a moment, like, essentially to that type of character, there would be no difference between like Vista and like the fucking fishman that Zoro beat at Fishman Island. The gap should be like that or bigger. That's the weird thing about the Vista situation. So maybe Mihawk has another form. I don't know. Yeah, the egg on his ship for this chapter, lol. Yeah, the egg on the ship the egg's just been there for a while. Mihawk held back enough to not kill Fodder Asperatier Zoro makes enough sense, but there's just no reason for Mihawk to hold back. Like, he literally took out characters as he felt like taking them out, He's like, the new Kama showed up, Mihawk took them out, the Das Bones showed up, Mihawk just takes them out, right? There's not really a reason. Like, obviously Mihawk's not actually trying to kill Luffy with his full strength, but he has no reason to actually, like, have an equal fight with Vista. Like, it was never implied that Mihawk could just... Reading that section alone, it's never implied that Mihawk can just finish this whenever he wants. That's the weird thing. I've just viewed that as, like, some inconsistency, basically. It is what it is. It doesn't help also that Marineford just did not help Mihawk's stocks at the time at all. Because, like, it's not even like the Vista moment was in isolation and it was just a weird thing. The war literally begins. The first thing that fucking happens in the war is Mihawk getting his attack blocked by Jozu, which wasn't a good look either. And I remember at that time when I was reading, that was disappointing for me because I was, I liked Zoro. I wanted to see Mihawk do cool stuff in Marineford. He was one of the characters I was looking forward to the most. And I just didn't like that he got blocked by Jozu right off the bat. And I was like, well, Mihawk will probably do something after this to cut Jozu or something, but then that never happened. So I remember I was disappointed reading that. It was just bizarre, because, like, there was nothing that... This actually makes so little sense, because Mihawk's casual attack cut the iceberg in half, right? There's no way that Vista can do that. There's just no way that Vista's sword swings can casually cut that iceberg in half, right? So then by that logic, even if Mihawk's using, like, almost no strength, like the same level of force that he was using to cut the iceberg, shouldn't he just, like, dice up Vista? I don't know. I don't view him ducking Shanks as being a bad look, because that was, like, in my mind, I was like, that's his friend. So I was just like, he's not going to fight Shanks. Mist says, do people not realize Jozu was Diamond? Diamond never been damaged in the story? Yeah, but I'm sure Mihawk could if he tried, right? Like, it's the same way imagine Mihawk could cut Vista if he tried. That's the thing, though. We just want to see Mihawk try, so it doesn't have to be just speculation anymore. It's not speculation. He's the world's strongest swordsman, but we just want to see it in action instead of just, like, used for whatever. Spiker PR says, honestly, I bet Vista can do that. But I think Vista would have to do a move. Like, I think it would have to be, like, effort. Mihawk just did, like, a random basic swing and it cut the iceberg, right? I don't think Vista could just like, a random sword swing just cuts the iceberg in half, personally. Meek, good to see you, man. Thanks for the 5. Sup, how'd you like the chapter? Especially the Rock's Herald interaction and Kazuki Moria. Sorry for the delay, our uploader was asleep. Oh, no worries, man. I love this chapter. I love the interactions. That's the big thing. Because the chapter had a great mix of, like, it gave us everything. It had the fun interactions between, the Roger Rock scene was my favorite in this. It just, like, getting to see these characters finally talk to each other. And I felt beforehand that, like, Rox would kind of, like, big bro, like, treat Roger like the little bro or whatever. But I like that Oda portrayed things in a way that Roger looked cool in this, you know? Because people were complaining about Roger looking too lame in recent chapters or whatever. It's like, no, he's just lame when it comes to Shaki. But everything else, Roger's still Roger. He's still got that same energy. So I like that Oda made Roger look like a badass. I like the way that he portrayed their rivalry, the two clashing personalities. I think one of the coolest things was it just being revealed that Roger just, like, beat his way up to the front of the line and didn't even care about any of the other pirates there. Just seeing, you know, Rox drinking with, like, Big Mom, Whitebeard in the scene, Roger wanting to drink with Whitebeard and stuff like that. Like, Roger already from back then was like, I know that Newgate guy is pretty cool, you know? Love that part. Then the Rox Herald scene was genuinely very emotional. Like, it's not like I was tearing up or anything like that, but it was a hard-hitting scene because I feel like that friendship felt very genuine so far. It was well written. And yeah, just I like the scene quite a bit. And then the Garling-Gorosei interaction was cool too. It's just a throwback to before Garling was Gorosei status himself, like back when he had to show them some degree of respect and they could talk down to him. It's just cool seeing things full circle where, like, the Gorosei used to be his bosses and they could be like, you know, he had to speak with some level of, like, deference to them. And then, even though Garling was probably stronger than them, I imagine, probably, already. And then things coming full circle to just, like, it makes that scene where Garling walks into the Gorosei's room, like, just very confidently and just takes a seat among them. It makes that scene that much more satisfying in retrospect, because you know what the dynamic used to be between them, and you know how much Garling is probably savoring this now. Anime Dimension, thanks for the 5. I think Garling found the weapon which Imu used to destroy Lelucia on God Valley. Most likely it's Uranus. Yeah, my question about that, because I think that's very possible, my question about that is just, like, why then didn't, why did they decide to wait 2 years? That's rant. Can't they just go pick it up now? I don't know. So is this how Moria becomes relevant again in the story? Yeah. I think so. Zarek, I don't recognize the channel name, but obviously you're a big channel. What do we think killed Rox? So at this point, because I don't feel like Roger would have killed Rox necessarily. At this point, I like the idea that people have been talking about in stream that Harold may have come through and helped Rox at God Valley. If that was the case, then Harold might have been able to take Rox as a refugee over to Elbaf or something. Taptio Treviso says, it would look suspicious if they took the island, but it's the world government, right? They can do whatever the fuck they want. I mean, it's not like the thing that they're going to go do a hunting competition where they just go kill everybody on the island afterwards. So, like, what's the difference? Abhishek Sharma says, Morge, what's your view on Harold being on God Valley, possibly betraying Rox? Oh, shit. I don't think Harold's going to betray Rox again. He's already betrayed Rox once. I like the idea that he redeems himself and comes through in a major way to help Rox out. Fooly Cooley says, who do you have more stocks in, Garling or Mihawk? More stocks in. I think Garling will have the greater story significance. Who will be stronger end of story? I feel like Mihawk, right? Sorry, my voice kind of cracked there. It's hard to say. I feel like Mihawk should be stronger, personally. Unless we get the reveal that Garling is, like, equal to Roger and shit. But I don't think that'll happen. Kind of want to do my top 30 all time again. Because if I were to say off the top of my head, now the top 30 is really fucking difficult. All I got is Joyboy 1, Emu 2. I kind of want to not rank Ryuma anymore. It just leads to too much headache. I still feel like I got Roger 3. But then there's so many characters that are supposed to be tied. Like, Roger, Whitebeard are supposed to be tied. Garp basically tied. Rock's Herald tied. It is hard to crack the top 10 in One Piece at this point. Like, you could be fucking, like, Shanks or something at this point in the story. Shanks, Dragon, fucking Kaido or whatever, and you arguably don't crack top 10 all time in One Piece. Because just there's so many characters now that you would consider Pirate King level, you know? Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 10. You've hinted that various side characters like the Red Hairs, Revos, Mihawk, etc. will fight the Elders and God's Knights. You have Blackbeard stealing the Seraphim. Will the Strahds fight anyone while Luffy fights Emu? Emu's order of defeat is the most confusing thing to me, because I think it's very possible that Emu is just killed by other characters and Blackbeard takes his ability. If Blackbeard takes Emu's ability, I don't think Luffy fights Emu. I think Elbaf will be Luffy's, like, encounter with Emu. Because I don't see Oda having Luffy fight Emu, and then Blackbeard stealing Emu's ability, and then Luffy fighting the same ability again. I feel like that's very repetitive. But if Emu is last, after Blackbeard, then do I see the Strahds fighting anybody while Luffy fights Emu? I think no. I think Emu becomes its own separate fight. And it's not uncommon that Luffy gets more fights than the Straw Hats over the course of a singular storyline. So I think, like, the Strahd parts versus the Blackbeard parts are, like, the most important battle. And then I feel like after that, Luffy will be so strong that all the other fights will be done. And then Luffy moves on to Emu. And then that's, like, the final showdown. But I could see Luffy versus Emu almost being a victory lap for Luffy. A la Luffy versus Enel. I think, like, Luffy's most important and difficult battle will be against Blackbeard. I think he will come out of that fight with, like, Joy Boy level hockey and stuff like that, like crazy shit. Gear 5th, max power, completely figured out. And I think that he will then basically, he would then teach Emu a lesson, kind of bringing back the PTSD that Emu felt when he felt Joy Boy's hockey, you know? Ikioi no Rafa, thanks for the 10. Do you think Oda planned for Gecko Moria being a Kazuki from the start? Not sure why that would be so planned. Can he maybe read the poneglyphs? I think the poneglyphs are a big part of that. We know that Oda was already planting, like, Moria Wano connections and Moria Kaido connections or whatever from Thriller Bark. But Moria being a Kazuki, that's an interesting, like, was that always planned? I do think it's poneglyph. I think that's the main purpose. And I think it was kind of two birds, one stone. Maybe Oda realized that later on. Whether he planned it or not initially, I think it feels very natural, because it's kind of two birds, one stone in the sense that, like, making Moria Kazuki adds reason to why Moria went out of his way to try and fight Kaido head on in Wano, right? It adds depth to Moria's character in that you realize that he actually was a noble figure in the past who tried to go back and, like, defend his homeland and everything. So it connects a piece of Moria's story in a really satisfying way. Maybe not really satisfying, but it connects a piece to Moria's story in a nice way, in my opinion. And just adds context as to, like, oh, that's why Moria would go back to Wano. Would go to Wano in the first place to do this stuff, and fight Kaido. And then, beyond that, right, it would check off, I'm saving this for next Tuesday's video, but I'll just say now, like, a big piece for Cross Guild, which is, like, the ability to read poneglyphs, because there's only so many poneglyph reading people out there in the world. You kind of have to just reveal some new characters who can read poneglyphs at this point for things to click, right? Like, okay, it's not just Robin, three-eyed people can read the poneglyphs, right? So that's got the Blackbeard Pirates checked off. It's not just Robin, fucking, Vegapunk can read the poneglyphs, right? So now the world government has York, so that's checked off, right? So Oda kind of just has to do those reveals more as we go. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Since Emu is the cause of everything, why wasn't he aware of Elbaf, of the Elbaf? He seemed genuinely interested when he took over Gunko or God Valley existence. I think that Emu is aware of anything from, like, a very top-down point of view. Like, I think that I don't think he's omniscient, like he just knows everything. I think he kind of controls things from the shadows, and I think it's really on the Gorosei to be more aware and do tasks for him and be more involved in, like, what's the nitty-gritty of what's happening with the islands. Dryga Humia, thanks a lot. Harold's mistake that day equals God Valley and saving rocks. I really like to believe that that's the case. I like to believe that that's what happened. It also, again, it just makes certain things line up kind of neatly, where it's just like, um, again, Roger and Garp together against rocks might be overkill. I used to think that Roger and Garp together versus rocks made sense, but this latest chapter, at least as Roger has progressed in his pirate journey, it now seems more like, I don't think he's as strong as Rocks yet, but it feels more like he's already treating him as an equal, and Rock seems to view Roger as not as an equal, as like they talk to each other like they're on a similar, like they're similar caliber of pirate, you know. So yeah, I feel like if somebody, it might be Roger and Garp together are taking on Rocks, and that's almost too much for Rocks, and then Harold comes through to fight on his friend's side. I think that would be such a fucking cool twist on the God Valley story, where like before this, like if you go back to chapter 957, it's all framed as though the bad guys are the Rocks pirates, right? Like Rocks, this evil dude, he led the Rocks pirates, and then this marine hero Garp came in to save the day. And you know what? Garp wasn't on his own. He fought alongside Gold Roger, who we already viewed as a protagonist figure, right? Like Roger was the previous pirate king. He's the one Luffy looked up to, who gave him the Shanks the hat, right? Like we all liked Roger. We wanted to see more of Roger. So it really painted the picture of like the two good guys setting aside their differences to come fight together to take out this bigger evil Rocks, right? But now as we're heading towards God Valley, it's not like Roger and Garp are evil or anything, but now it's just more complicated. Now, the thing that would actually feel really, really cool is not just seeing Roger and Garp come together. That's whatever, right? We kind of expect that. The really cool moment is actually like, now we have this image of Rocks potentially having to fight as this lone figure in a 2v1 against Roger and Garp. And Rocks is almost all of his dreams falling apart because he's in this unfair battle where people are teaming up against him, and his crew has likely abandoned him at this point, right? Because that's what Kaido hinted at happened at God Valley, right? And so now we view Rocks almost as like, what if he was the underdog in this situation, without a friend, up in a 2v1 that he couldn't win or whatever, and then finally his friend, who he relied on for so long, who he had a falling out with, his friend comes through clutch and comes in to actually save him and even the odds right then. Like, that's just such a cool twist of narrative like expectations, because we're imagining the cool team up being Roger and Garp coming together to fight Rocks, but at this point in the story we really like Rocks, and we can imagine him actually having been the one that, like, man, like, he's got the pressure on him, he's the underdog in this scenario, we're kind of rooting for him to pull through in a way, and like he's the character that we're waiting on the miraculous cavalry to arrive for, to give him, like, you know, the power of friendship boost or whatever. I think that's just such a cool, like, if you went back and told me in chapter 957 that that's a perspective that I might be reading God Valley through, that would just be crazy to imagine, you know? I still think Rocks pretty much loses to Roger or something, but at least he has his friend at his side at the end of the day, and maybe Harold gets him out of there or something. Harold pops up and offs Rocks? That would make Harold such a shitty character. That would be insane. Roger Garp versus Rocks just inflated Rocks and put down Roger, so Harold and Rocks sounds more believable. Yeah, I think it might have become a 2v2, or at least Harold versus Garp while Roger fought Rocks. It's pretty clear at this point that Roger and Rocks is like the most important matchup that really needs to happen, and Garp will probably be in there, but I do think Garp being distracted by something else matters. Meyer Shermer says, you know, Brago keeps mentioning something. Every Rocks member always looks up to Roger, not Rocks. How is Roger moving to be so much better than Rocks, lol? So I think it's a couple things, but we'll get more context later. One, the biggest thing is I do think that, well, okay, let's get to the biggest thing. It's a combination of factors, I imagine, which is that I think from their perspective, it's possible that Roger, at the end of the day, accomplished more than Rox, because Roger is the one who built this legacy as Pirate King, and a lot of them genuinely believe that Roger found this great world-changing, all-powerful treasure, the One Piece, right? So they view Roger as having accomplished something, right? With Rox, they were all on the Rox crew, and they were a part of all of the activities Rox did, and because they're part of this dynamic or whatever, they probably don't necessarily, a lot of them, like, even from the get-go, right? Like, when they all show up at Elbaf or whatever, they're like, Rox, we don't even, like this guy. We're just following him because, like, we're just following him around or whatever, because, like, technically Davy backfight shit or whatever, right? I think Rox, the way he built his crew, because they're all on the inside, right? I don't know if they view themselves as a gang, right? Like, as a group, and Rox is the guy that, like, is technically their leader, but I don't know if he's ever really, like, captured their hearts, like, the way that Luffy has captured, you know, his crew's hearts or whatever. And ultimately, they might view Rox as having failed, largely because they abandoned him too. But, like, Rox, whatever he tried to do at God Valley, he didn't accomplish it. He talked a big dream, etc. to them, but it never really came to fruition. I think that might skew their perspectives of Rox. The second aspect of this is that, so, like, that's number one, right? In terms of, like, the legacy Rox, like, just being part of the crew, right? So they already felt the dynamic, and, like, when you know Rox personally, like, maybe you just don't feel, like, that same level of respect, not because he's not very strong, but just because of the dynamic that group in particular had, which was not a very respectful dynamic, right? Two, just that Rox didn't succeed in his aspirations, so talked a big talk, but didn't actually achieve what he said he wanted to achieve. Three, maybe just his legacy itself being generally erased, whereas from their perspective, a lot of them might look up to Roger, and that Roger achieved most of what they would have wanted individually, which is, like, from what they believe, Roger, one, he's viewed as the Pirate King, so, like, the top dog of all pirates, that's what the world views him as. Two, the One Piece, they all believe that the One Piece is real, right? So, like, Big Mom, Kaido, etc., they genuinely believe that Roger managed to get his hands on something that is, like, so huge that it's world changing, and they believe that if they get the One Piece themselves, then that's it, like, they're set, right? And then three, my personal belief is that Roger did overcome Rox at God Valley when it came down to 1v1. And, you know, just the way that some characters talk, like, Kaido talks about Roger's haki, Garp talks about, like, what Roger would turn into when, like, his back was really against the wall, or whatever, right? Like, my feeling is that at God Valley, which was, like, the biggest battle in, like, modern One Piece history, like, makes Marineford look like a fucking joke, right? Like, this had everything. All the fucking Emperors, the God's Knights, the Prime Roger Pirates, the greatest Marine ever, right? Like, it had everybody all together, right? Like, all of them in one singular battle that dwarfs Marineford. That happened at God Valley, right? And ultimately, Roger probably came out looking like the strongest from that. Like, at least from the way Kaido talks about it, like, Roger came out, like, Roger's haki transcends all, right? Like, he brought the pirate world to, like, he conquered the pirate world through his haki, right? My feeling is that even if the Rox pirates viewed Rox, like, they respected Rox's strength and viewed him as the strongest, I imagine Roger did ultimately beat him at God Valley. And you know the way haki is, right? Like, big haki blasts and stuff like that, like haki clashes or whatever. Like, you can tell when fights are going down. So at the end of the day, like, if Roger beat Rox in a manner that was, like, so impressive and, like, the haki could be felt all across the battle or whatever, if you were part of that God Valley battle, you will forever remember that as, like, the greatest battle that you've ever been part of, right? Like, everything after God Valley is small potatoes in the pirate world, right? That was the battle for, like, supremacy or whatever. Roger came out on top, seemingly. And I imagine that commands a lot of respect from the rest of the pirate world. Like, they have memories of Roger from God Valley, right? And then they assume that he amassed this huge treasure and stuff afterwards, and then finally everybody else is calling him the Pirate King. So it's, like, a lot of ways, like, to them, Roger essentially achieved the pinnacle of what like, a pirate can achieve, so there's going to be a lot of respect there. Whereas Rox was, like, their captain, yes, but their captain who they didn't like and didn't personally really, like, feel that much loyalty to. and who ultimately talked a big talk but didn't get there, and who they probably ultimately realized lost in a fight to another pirate. That's my guess, but I might be wrong. You know? This is all just speculation right now, you know? Hidden Sun God says, unless Harold did come in at the end to save Rox, kept him hidden, and only reported to the world government that he killed Rox. I mean, I think it'd be great if Harold comes in like that. I think that's amazing storytelling. That'd be really compelling storytelling. T-Bag says, Kaido could have dodged Bajrangan. He just chose to take it and took the L. I just think that's a stupid argument always, because it's just like, by that logic, like, it's just an anime fight. Like, all anime fights end in, like, not all anime fights, but a lot of anime fights end in big clashes, you know? Like, that's just the way it is. I just don't get it, like, because you just know it's like coming from a place of just trying to defend Kaido's legacy no matter what, because you never fucking hear, like, King could have fucking flown away from Onigashima if he fucking wanted to, because Enma was stealing Zoro's life, you know? Like, King could have just left. He didn't have to have a final clash with Zoro. He could have fucking flown, he could have fucked off, like, 200 meters into the sky. He would have been fine. Zoro was literally staring the Grim Reaper in the face, like, 5 minutes later. Without King's involvement. Nobody talks about that. Doflamingo didn't have to fucking clash with King Kongun. Nobody's like, oh, Doflamingo only lost to Luffy because he chose to clash with King Kongun. Nobody's like fucking... just fucking go through all of One Piece, literally, right? Like, how come these arguments aren't made for all of the other clashes, right? Daz Bones could have just dodged Zoro's Shishi Sonson. Why was Daz Bones stupid? Why did he try and stand there and take Zoro's final attack? Characters do these clashes because they think they'll win. Couldn't Luffy have just... If Kaido was going to try and dodge Bajrangan, Luffy... Why don't you just say, well, Luffy could have just deflated Bajrangan and then continued fighting? Like, why is it that only Bajrangan is where you see characters... Like, people argue that, like... It's almost like retroactive logic, right? It's like, well, Kaido did this clash and lost, right? Kaido did this clash and lost, therefore the clash can't count because Kaido could have just technically dodged it, right? How the fuck does that make any sense? If Kaido did the clash and won, like Kaido fucking thought he would, Kaido did the clash because he thought he would win the clash, right? That's how these clashes work, right? You can go do this reverse logic for every fucking anime fight that ends in the clash, which is like, well, Daz Bones lost to Zoro's Shishi Sonson here, so let's just scrap that and say that, okay, alternate reality, what if Daz Bones realizes that Zoro can cut him and then just fucking dodges or some shit? Daz Bones gonna just dodge Shishi Sonson. Don't try and take it. Fucking run away and let Zoro bleed out from his injuries like he did like a second later. It's just actually mind-boggling. Like, so many fights end with this. This is how a lot of One Piece fights end. Like, why don't they talk about Doflamingo and fucking King Kongun? How come that's not brought up there? Like, literally, I genuinely don't understand. Gugu says because Kaido explicitly said he could dodge, but he felt like no. But that's the same for all of these characters. I'm not saying that in these other clashes, characters couldn't dodge. Again, we all know King could have fucking flown. He could have fucking left. He could have fucking left the battlefield. Like, we don't need King to specifically say, "I'm going to take your clash." They're all going to try and win the clash, right? Why does Kaido saying that he can dodge? We already know that they can dodge. Characters do these final clashes because they think they can win the clash. That's it. That's just fighting. It's not like Kaido is like, does Doflamingo need to say, I could dodge King Kongun? Or do we have a fucking brain and realize that Doflamingo is choosing to try and clash with King Kongun? Like, they can all try to dodge. Like, what's the explanation here? Chinuel Abachi says characters think they can win fights. Yeah, exactly. It's just the Kaido fight. I've never seen it for any other anime clash. Like the fucking final fights end with these clashes. That's just what happens, you know? It's anime shit. Alright, continuing on. Anime Dimension, Part 1. If the world openly tries to reach Uranus, there is a possibility of pirates showing up, especially Roger and Rox. But that already happened. What do you mean it openly tries to reach Uranus? Can't they just, like, take it? How would Roger and Rox even find out? Wouldn't it be more dangerous to let it sit there for 2 years? Because that's literally what actually happened. They let it sit for 2 years, and then other people found out about it. Isn't it just faster to just send people right away? Just fucking send all the Gods Knights right away and pick it up and get out of there. Maybe there's a reason that it can't be taken. That's what I like to think. Anime Dimension, thanks for the 5. Part 2, they wanted to obtain the weapon under the ruse of a hunting competition so that they could hide the fact that they had stolen the ancient weapon. I guess that makes sense, kind of. I'm biased towards this because it obviously didn't work. Or I guess it did work because they do have Uranus. But, like, I just don't get it because, like, it's the world government, right? So they can make any fucking excuse that they want to go destroy an island because they already do that, you know? I guess that makes it. Maybe we'll get some clarification later. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Do you think Davy backfights have a magical element that compels pirates to obey the result, like how Emu might control others with the Davy Jones fruit? That's an interesting idea, but I think if that were the case, that should have been established. That would have been established during the Davy backfight arc. I feel like it's just an honor among pirates thing. Like Luffy was literally just like, well, if these are the rules of the game, like. Just out of his own, like, pride or whatever, he was like, I want to do it fair and square. Which is kind of crazy, because I'm like, if they'd lost the Davy backfight, and then they'd fucking taken, let's say they'd fucking taken Nami or something forever, would Luffy have just been like, well, I had to get you back from Arlong, but not gonna get you back from the fucking Davy backfight? I don't know. I guess so, because, I mean, that's what they told Chopper. Bassam El Madawi, thanks for the 2. Spider-Man 3, Harry Osborn, and Peter moment for Rox and Harold. Yeah, I guess so, but hopefully just done way better. Narukami says it's not just one thing. Garling mentions unique culture, resources, and one big thing that Emu would be interested. Yeah, I imagine there's more to this. I'm gonna wait and see, right? Sounds like there's more to it. I'm very interested, though. I don't know if it's the ancient weapon. I would love for it to be something even more complex. Or more out of left field. Because I feel like they might have had the... Here's the thing. I feel like they might have had the ancient weapon already. Because obviously all of the flooding that happened way back... that I assume the world government did. So then maybe, so let's say it gets lost somewhere. You know what? Interesting question. Do you guys think that Enni's Lobby already exists at this point in time? Or maybe they retrieve Uranus and then they decide to test it for the first time ever. And then that's why Enni's Lobby exists. And that's why there's still that hole there, you know? JWP, thanks for sending 10 memberships. Holy shit, man. Oh my god. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the return. I hope you're enjoying One Piece, man. I really appreciate it. I know that you said that you were kind of checking out for some time, but yeah. The GOAT is back. Thanks a lot, man. Everybody in chat say thanks and welcome back to JWP. One Piece has obviously been really, really, really good recently, so I hope you've been enjoying the chapter, and I hope you've been enjoying the stream, man. I know, different environment today. Yeah, everybody in chat just say, if you got a membership from JWP, then definitely say thank you. And everybody else just say W in the chat to JWP because, again, he has been the long time just contributor to these streams in terms of giving a lot of you guys memberships. And obviously, I'm very thankful as well. So thanks, man. I really appreciate it. JWP, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 32 months, man. Yo, Morge, man, long time no see. Long time no see to you too, man. Haven't been able to tune in live streams due to work, but have been enjoying the videos, podcasts, and live streams. I really do appreciate it, man. No pressure at all to keep coming through live streams or whatever, but we're obviously all really happy when you do come through. Yeah, glad to see you're doing well, man. And I'm happy that you're enjoying the recent videos and streams and all of that. JWP pop up with gifts like he never left. Yeah. The GOAT. Yeah. Saeed Abdo, thanks a lot. Or not thanks a lot, sorry, I'm still reacting to JWP. Okay, Stussie's thoughts to herself is slightly inaccurate in TCB. She said he has a euphoric look on his face as if a kid was born, let alone being with a woman. So in that case, Blackbeard was just born. Confirmed. Abhishek Sharma says, do you think we will get God Valley next chapter? Personally, I think we will get more God Valley Shanks lore, but not the battle. I don't think we're getting God Valley just yet. I think we need a little bit longer, which is, honestly, I'm really thankful for that Oda's really taking his time with this flashback, because now it's 11:58. We're already, what, like 5 chapters into the flashback? We've covered so much. I just like that this flashback does not feel rushed. I feel like Oda's doing, he's doing it, he's doing it the service that it deserves, in that, like, we get to spend time just getting to see the interactions and the dynamics, because I feel like that's really important to this. That was one thing I did not like about the Odin flashback, which is that I felt like in the Odin flashback, because Oda's setting up all the scabbards and Odin and their dynamic, and the scabbards dynamic with Odin that has been stressed and played up so much in the modern day Wano storyline as, like, this really emotional thing, very, very, like, the scabbards are always fucking crying every time they talk about Odin. It essentially is the emotional crux of the Wano storyline, like the driving emotional heart of it, the scabbards and their relationship with their long lost daimyo, right, their leader. And then in the Odin flashback itself, it felt like almost no time was spent with the actual dynamics between Odin and the scabbards. Like, Oda just flew through just saying that Odin met this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy, and this guy, and then that's pretty much it. Like, and then we skip to the Odin and Whitebeard, Odin and Roger section of the story. It just felt like I didn't feel that much more for the scabbards and Odin post Odin flashback. If anything, I felt less, because I was like, I feel like we skipped stuff. I feel like we didn't really get to see why we should care so much about, like, the scabbards and Odin. Like, obviously the pot boiling thing was big, but the pot boiling thing has a lot more meaning when you've seen the little things that lead up to that give that big moment meaning. Does that make sense? Jumbo Dumbo, I still like the Odin pot boiling scene a lot, though. Jumbo Dumbo, thanks for the 5. Usopp's arc starting to look like the One Piece isn't real. No, I think that, like the One Piece, it isn't real. That's funny. No, I do think that, look, Oda's planned so much for Elbaf that's clearly all coming together here. So now more than ever, I really, really do strongly trust that Elbaf is, like, Usopp's got something big stored for Elbaf. I really, really do trust that, just because there's so much other shit coming together here, you know? Yeah, we don't need to get into the scabbards and everything. Maybe I shouldn't have raised that up. But I just love seeing the bar scenes, the scenes when they were, like, looting that island, the scenes of them, like, making Hachinosu their base. It's just, it feels fun. It feels like you get to see the characters connect. Roger and Rox's dynamic. Mark Krengle says, Morge, when do you think One Piece will end? Do you still think it's 2032? I think that One Piece will end somewhere between chapter 30... I said 2032. I'd have to look back at what I thought the pacing was. For me, it's more so about the chapter count. I think it'll end at around chapter 1350. I think 1400 at the absolute latest, but 1350 if Oda's trying to push it. I do think that Elbaf could end around chapter 1200, personally. Although this flashback is getting very lengthy. Hidden Sun God with a good point. I'm glad Oda chose to give us this Rocks Roger flashback now, so that when we get to the final war, we won't have to cut away mid-war to see all of this, and anything he leaves out now could be shown later. True. That's a really good point. We don't want to stop momentum once we really get going. Meek, thanks for the 5. In my opinion, Usopp has to reverse the Domi Reversi effects as his big Elbaf moment. He reversed the toy slaves in Dressrosa to Hadruden, so it's similar. That's a really, really, really good point. That's a phenomenal point. That's first what made Hadruden hold Usopp up and be like, this is God Usopp. This would just reinforce that. Hadruden be like, see, I told you guys, this guy's a huge deal. I'm glad I brought him to this island. Yeah, reversing because it was even shown that killing him is an archer, right? So, like, that sets up a good Usopp matchup right there. I think that'd be really great. One Piece before World War III? Yeah, I think so. Let's hope so. golden Usopp statue in the center of Elbaf, says Bubble Bass. Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, that'd be insane. Like a bronze statue upgraded to a gold statue. Yeah. Abrar Ahmed says, I cannot see everything that is set up in One Piece being done by 1350. I think 1400 or even 1450 is enough time. I think things can tie together really well, really fast if Oda wanted them to. Like, not super fast, but pretty fast, you know? Because a lot of what makes story arcs really long in One Piece is extensive setup time. Like, let's say we get to Wano, we have to spend so many chapters establishing the setting, the lore, the context, what is the conflict of the island, who are the bad guys, who are all the side characters, what's all the side character stories, etc., right? The reason I think One Piece can wrap with, like, not, like, rushed, but relatively fast in terms of momentum, like, it can just get rolling and then complete a lot really quickly, is because when it comes to the final saga, almost all the setup is already done. Like, we don't need to learn... like, all the major side characters are established long-running side characters. Like, Kobe, Sabo, Aokiji, Shanks, Dragon. Like, they all have backstories and histories that we do need to learn. But it's not like these are brand new characters being introduced at this point. So, like, the characters, all the side characters set up, right? Everybody's motivations and everything set up. The bad guys, pretty much all set up, right? The conflict, context, lore, like, we know, like, it's everything we've been reading so far. We still need some additional things, like the Void Century flashback, some individual characters flashbacks and things like that. But we're not setting up a whole new stage and setting and everything like that. Like, Oda's been doing the groundwork for all this for so long that I think that the story really can go out with, like, one big bang that will go faster than people think. JWP, thanks for the 20, man. Thanks again. Young Big Mom feels like an entirely different character than old Big Mom, not just by design, but how she talks and acts. Her talking to Roger was great. She could have been an amazing character if she stayed that way. Yeah, you know what's really funny? So I talk about this in my chapter review. It genuinely feels like young Big Mom is a totally different character than, like, what she was as a child and later as a older adult, right? Because if you look at, like, Whole Cake Island, that's where we first get the Big Mom flashback. The Big Mom storyline in that, like, it feels like there's tremendous congruence between the child Big Mom that we see and then the modern day Big Mom that we see. Like, you just read her flashback, she reads exactly in her childhood as you would expect for the way that she is today, right? Same at 5 years old, 10 years old, it all feels, like, very, very congruent. And even just, like, in terms of motivations, at 10 years old, she's talking about, like, follow me, I'll create a world of peace and stuff like that. If you don't, then you'll die. Like, and that transitions right into what Big Mom is trying to do today, as an adult, Yonko, everything like that. The in-between Big Mom, it's just a totally divorced character from any of that. None of the craziness, none of, like, the wild, destructive nature or anything like that. Not even any talk of the same goals and motivations. Like, none of it. It feels like an entirely different character. Like, there's just no congruence. Like, in terms of behavior, personality, actions, general portrayal, goals, motivations, what she talks about, focuses, etc. Totally different. I would love if we could get some elaboration because, like, 5-10-year-old Big Mom, like, she already had a dream as to what she's trying to create, right? But with the Rocks Pirates, it just seems like she's just another pirate that's just doing whatever and just trying to get some gold or whatever on the side. I like this character way better. Because the other Big Mom is just too all over the place, but I would like some additional congruence, possibly just to make it feel like it's the same character, like, have her mention, like, has she even talked about sweets? Or, like, hunger pangs? Like, there's just nothing. Literally nothing. Sweets, hunger pangs, I don't think any of that. Like, just something to tell me that it's the same character, because when everything is different, like the design, personality, tics, dreams, goals, all of that is so drastically different, then it almost feels like we're just not even reading Big Mom. So I would love something to make it feel like, you know, it's the same person. Weekly Zonin, thanks for the 2. How good was Anime NYC? Oh, Anime NYC, so I did actually get to step inside the convention. First of all, like, the main thing for me was getting to meet all the other people, and that was phenomenal. I had so much fun. Really met people that, like, I consider now as like friends and who I would um, definitely want to see again, right? So that was great. That was the main part of the experience. They did get me. If you're asking about Anime NYC itself, Hidden Island was able to get me in without me having to pay for a pass, and it was a crazy convention. Like so many people. I've never been to an anime convention that big. Right, just floors upon floors. It's in the Javits Convention Center in New York, which is a really big one. It's just so packed. Like several times bigger than any anime convention I've been to, and I've been to like several at this point. So just on a totally different scale. Really overwhelming. Never seen that many people in cosplay. There was like a One Piece meetup that happened, and it was just a sea of One Piece fans. Never seen anything like it. Uwu, thanks for the 5. We'll never see the end of One Piece, and that's beautiful in its own way. It will live forever in wonder and mystery due to UFO/World War III. You're bringing back the UFO train. Thanks, Uwu. But I do want to see the end of One Piece. I really look forward to it. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Do you still think Luffy has to beat Big Mom like he said? No, at this point I don't think that's happening. I don't think it's likely. MOH, thanks for the 5. The past 6 years in the underworld for Loki reminds me of Luffy's 2-year time skip. 6 human years equals 2 giant years. Post major loss, Animals, Ray, and Gabon. Oh, you think that he got stronger in the underworld? I just don't think Loki got stronger in the underworld. Oh, but I see what you're saying. Like, it's similar. Like, Loki had his own version of a time skip. And now he's going to be back on the scene. Yeah, he lost. Yeah, Animals there. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, the Rayleigh. I see what you're saying now. He just didn't get stronger. Ooh, says people change, bro. Yeah, no. I'm not saying that she can't change. It's more so that it's how do I say? It's that she changed drastically and then changed back. If that's what I'm saying. Like normally when you see a character, you might see a character as they're younger and then they're different as they're an adult or whatever. But that was the bizarre thing, which is like Whole Cake Island, Big Mom. We see her like as a child, she's like this, and then in her 60s or whatever, she's exactly like that. Like it feels like a very congruent character. But then randomly in the middle, it feels so drastically different. Like totally different character, right? Like if you didn't know that's Big Mom, you would never in a million years guess that that's Big Mom. I guess maybe the fact that she has children, that might be the one giveaway, right? Oh, this is Katakuri's mom, so probably fucking Big Mom, right? But that's the thing. Like it's so drastically different, personality-wise, goals, dreams, motivations, etc. Tics, personality quirks, even the hunger pangs, things like that. Design, obviously, all of that's so different. Temperament. And then she snaps back to the same type of character that she was as a child. So that's what's curious, I'm saying. Narukami says, I think it's very obvious in my opinion that as she got older, her mental state declined, so she reverted to her childish tantrums. That is what we call headcanon. But, like, it's fine to include headcanon because there's nothing that actually indicates that that's the reason why. But it's fine to use that as an explanation that could make sense. Will Kaido and Big Mom come back as major players in the current story? I don't know. I think it'd be cool. I would love to see them awaken their fruits and come back or something. Because, like, maybe that's the thing. Like, maybe Kaido needed, like, a deep near-death experience. Maybe that's why Oda didn't have him awaken his fruit. Maybe you need a deep near-death experience like Luffy had to really awaken it. Because otherwise, like, why the fuck does Kaku have his fruit awakened and Kaido doesn't? I've asked this in polls before, but I'm just curious if people have changed their opinion. Nice. So a lot of people are leaning towards Kaido and Big Mom coming back. I would like to see it at this point, but only if it's both Kaido and Big Mom. Not just, I don't think I'd like it if it's just Big Mom, because I'm tired of that character mostly. I think if you bring back Kaido and Big Mom as a duo, it's kind of cool. Yes, if they're fighting the Gorosei. Ooh, I don't know how they... I don't know how the Gorosei do against Kaido and Big Mom. I feel like most of the Gorosei don't have a shot. Mani says, why do you think Harold killing rocks makes him a bad character? I don't think it makes him a bad character. I just personally like him less. Personal preference. I've said before that, because I did the video on Kaido and Big Mom's potential return. The thing that I was thinking was that maybe if Kaido and Big Mom return, it's in the context of, like, what is it, like, because I like the idea that, because now you have two characters, like Katakuri and Yamato, two very significant characters who are strong, and who both have, like, crews underneath them, in a sense. Like, Katakuri's got the Big Mom Pirates crew underneath him. Yamato's got, you know, a lot of the remnants of the Beast Pirates that she's bringing together, kind of creating her own little faction or whatever. Plus the Scabbards, I assume, would rally behind her. It'd be cool if, like, Yamato leads a group against Kaido, and Katakuri leads a group against Big Mom, because that was a driving, motivating factor for both of them, which was, like, Katakuri was like, he ultimately wanted Big Mom dethroned. That was implied by his final words to Luffy, and Yamato, of course, was actively fighting against Kaido alongside the rest of Wano. So a rematch like that could be cool to see. Shiki could come back too, and you'd get a Big Mom Shiki Kaido reunion. Shiki coming back. Shiki actually technically is fucking alive. He's the only one that's fucking confirmed to still be out there. I mean, maybe we don't know what happened, right? Because we just know the Strong World version of, like, Shiki's out there working on whatever, but we know that's not technically canon. Neo Kaido Big Mom Alliance. There's definitely potential. Do you think Blackbeard will try to capture Whole Cake now that Big Mom is gone? I think if he was going to do that, he would have just done that already when he sent Aokiji and them over there. Shiki was set to have died? Buggy and Blackbeard alliance? Maybe. I don't know. I like the idea that Cross Guild's in it for themselves, though. Also, I want to give a big heads up to everybody. Big heads up. So first of all, as you can see, the shirts, right? If you want the Chopper shirt, click the link above, and you can get it. It is only available for, I think, the remaining week. I think for one more week. So if you want the Chopper shirt, check it out. It's at the link above. The other big thing, the summer sale that we have going on right now for the island posters is coming to a close. So right now, in case you don't know, the deal is buy two island posters, you get 3 free. Buy 2, get 3 free. It is absolutely fucking insane. We are basically giving the posters away just for this summer sale. So if you want the island posters, you want to complete your collection, make sure you go get those right now. You can also click the link above and just go to the island posters basically to get those. So if you want the island posters, make sure you get them right now, because this is the best chance to get them. This is the biggest bundle that we're doing basically. So you can get buy 2, get 3 free. Make sure you get those before it's the end of August, right? So August is when we stop doing that. I'll drop the link right here. Replace that for the moment. Yeah, so now you can click the link above and get to the island posters if you want. Again, just add any 5 that you want to the cart, and then 3 of them will immediately be discounted. So yeah. And I think we're taking the version 2s. I think we're taking a lot of the version 2s off after this month. So yeah, just make sure you get yours while you can. Rox may be a Celestial Dragon, says ND. I'm really curious about Rox's past, because Oda still hasn't gotten into that, so I wonder if that's something that'll come up, like, in God Valley or something. Do you think Perona and Toki are related? No, I don't think so. I can't believe Moria is going to run Pirate Island end of story. That'd be funny. A lot of horned characters have ties with Wano. I mean, like, fucking Onigashima is there. So it's like, we still have some big, big mysteries to find out, to figure out. Like, I wonder if in the ancient, like, the ancient era, right? Like, if we say, like, there's parallels, right? Like, Loki's parallel in the previous era was Herald, right? Is their parallel in the ancient era going to be fucking, like, Onigashima itself, you know? Like, whatever that great giant was? Because that's the giant of all giants, right? I wonder if Onigashima, like, whoever that giant was, like, the true original Oars or whatever, was an ally of Wano's or something like that. Mark Krengle says, Morge, how long is the Pirate King podcast? Usually they get to about an hour and a half. I don't want to promise that. So at minimum it's always an hour, but usually they're about an hour and a half. It fluctuates a bit depending on the number of questions and type of questions I get, but generally they hit about an hour and a half. So it's very in-depth, and obviously if you become a Pirate King member, then you get access to all previous Pirate King podcasts, and there's a shit ton of them at this point. So yeah, if you want to become a Pirate King member, get access to the Pirate King podcast, you get to submit your question right now. Submissions are now open. And yeah, you get your submission in. You can ask me about anything, One Piece, but other anime, manga, movies, TV, video games, NBA, real life, anything. And I answer all the questions in much more in-depth there in the Pirate King podcast than I do on streams, because I just have more time. Herlock Shum says, this is why I think Kaido will return. It's clear he knows something. I don't know if that means that he'll definitely return, but it's possible he learned something at God Valley, and we'll find out what he learned at God Valley. Bubble Bass says, no way Shanks lives. Either Blackbeard or his own family will end him. Yeah. I think so. I don't know about his own family. I think Blackbeard will be the one to get Shanks in the end. I think there's just too much build-up around that. I think Shanks versus Shamrock I'm kind of leaning towards now. Let me ask this. Is Shanks' opponent going to be Shamrock? Or is Shamrock's opponent going to be Shanks? I lean towards yes now. I think that's happening, personally. I just don't know who else Shanks fights, like, because I think he'll fight Blackbeard and lose, but in terms of, like, getting a win, I don't know who else, because, again, like, an Admiral is just not exciting anymore after the Green Bull situation. Gorosei could be Garling. That's the only one I think would be interesting. Angry Cat says, do you still believe this is Shanks' arc? Well, we just got baby Shanks. I think Shanks will be significant by the end of the arc. I think there's so much emphasis on Shanks that he will be significant. It's possible he doesn't show up in Elbaf itself, but I do think we'll be cutting away to some major Shanks stuff. Shamrock is Bonnie's biological dad? Yeah, I think that's very, very possible. Lord of the Coast rematch? That's funny. Alright, everybody. Again, make sure that you get your island posters while you can, because right now it is buy 2 posters, you get 3. Buy 2, get 3 free. So, insane deal. Literally more than buy 2, get 2 free. So, this is the summer sale. We are just doing this for this month. Helps people finish out their collections if you've been trying to complete your collection. If you complete your collection, which means that you get one of each island, you don't need version 2s. You just get one of each island. Then we send you the moon for free, which is exclusive. You can't get the moon outside of that. So if you're trying to complete your collection, or there's some other islands that you want to get, or you like some of the version 2s, click the link and you'll be able to see it. And yeah, this is the last time that we're doing this deal. This deal goes away basically as soon as August ends. So this is your last opportunity to get the Island Posters deal if you want to try the buy 2, get 3 free. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm really loving One Piece right now. This was a phenomenal chapter. I just love more of the character stuff that we're getting. Like seeing Garling talk to the Gorosei, Rox and Harold scene, Rox and Roger scene, everybody's scene in the bar. This is just my favorite shit. I would be very happy if we get several more chapters of just this type of slow-paced, just character-based storytelling before we get to the big stuff. But obviously I'll be really excited if we get to God Valley sooner than later as well. But the biggest thing about this chapter that excites me, honestly, is that it feels like semi-confirmation, like not hard confirmation, but semi-confirmation that we will get to see the God Valley incident by the end of this. And the last thing that I'll say was cool about this chapter is that Rox versus Harold was actually a bit of a genuine fight. It's not just a clash. We actually got some action there, which means that God Valley, like, think about that. That means that if Rox versus Harold, which is ultimately not the most important fight, like God Valley is the big one that Oda's building up to, that means that in God Valley, we could actually get more than just, like, individual clashes. I'm sure a lot of the matchups we see will just be clashes, but Rox versus Roger could potentially be, like, a lot more elaborate. Like, if it's at least as elaborate as Rox versus Harold, that's already, that was already, like, well, we just got this chapter between Rox and Harold. That was already kind of what I expected we might get with Rox versus Roger, like, that level, that amount of action. I wasn't hoping for too much more than that. But the fact that we already got this level of action for something that's not even part of the God Valley fight, like a fight we didn't even know was an important fight in One Piece, right? To me, that really, really raises my hopes that the God Valley incident will be an important, like, we'll get a lot more than just a clash. So that's, that's pretty awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to get your posters while they're still buy 2, get 3 free. That ends at the end of August, so the window for that summer sale is almost over. If you like the Chopper shirt, just go to the website that I've linked as well, and you can go under shirts. Under Gomu, you should be able to find the Chopper tee as well. This is available only for one more week, so watch out for that. And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in, and with that,